20 agonizing years since Hunok got dragged into this fantasy nightmare. Finally, it is punch-out time. He just needs to smash the final boss and roll the credits. Blocking his exit is the ultimate obstacle. A massive, ugly, winged gargoyle demon gazing at the hero's exhausted squad. The beast arrogantly applauds their pathetic struggle to survive. The saint, May, Knight, and our hero are running on empty. The boss's fake praise is just a cheap taunt before the final wipeout. Hunok scoffs at the villainous monologue. He is practically running on fumes himself and has zero patience for riddles. Demon skips the chat and violently unleashes its dark power. Clang. Our hero deflects it with his trusty spear, while the mage desperately spams defensive shields for the squad. Bow down or get crushed. The monster vows to remodel the entire kingdom using nothing but its own bloody fangs and claws. But Hunok isn't folding, parrying every lethal strike. The tired veteran demands they speedrun this final phase. Skipping the cooldown, he launches his spear. It erupts with the legendary flames of Paradox in a blinding, explosive boom. Yet, that epic nuke barely chips the final boss's health bar. The aerial dogfight shreds the landscape apart. The beast's razor-sharp claws finally bypass Hunok's defense, landing a brutal hit, slammed into the dirt. Hunok spits blood as the demon mocks his ultimate attack. A mere tickle. It laughs. Oh. Really? The battered hero smirks at the sheer arrogance, stubbornly rising for round 2, igniting his spear until the steel screams with red-hot fury. He promises this next strike will completely melt that smug attitude. Boom, he unleashes an apocalyptic inferno that literally lights up the horizon. The demon's crown hits the floor, coughing up blood. The mighty beast stammers out its disbelief. Beaten by a mere mortal, Hunok casually drops the mic. Plot twist, buddy. I am not even from this terrible game of a world. The monster just laughs it off. Even in death, it promises to respawn in the future after the land absorbs its corpse. Wait, why is its health draining? As the beast disintegrates, Hunok explains the deadly cheat code. The black flames of Paradox. These aren't your basic campfire flames. They literally burn through abstract concepts instead of oxygen, so that annoying respawn timer completely deleted. Permanent game over. Still, the dying boss throws one last salty remark. Nobody in this rotten world will ever sing praises for the hero. It sneers that his own party is just waiting for him to drop dead. Hunok yawns and admits he already knew, absolutely stunning the demon. The two-faced saint panics, begging him to ignore the monster, but Hunok is finally ready to spill the tea. He violently shatters her holy act, her cheap seduction attempts, just a pathetic trap to emotionally cripple the outsider hero. Also, she could literally stab him in the back while his guard was down. The saint gasps in absolute shock, totally speechless. But Hunok isn't done roasting the rest of his trash party. Take our honorable knight here. Homeboy is waiting on a shiny national treasure from the Emperor. His bounty, a reward for murdering Hunok right after the boss raid. Just because the royal family feared a coup, ignoring their panicked faces, the hero keeps firing. The mage hates his guts purely because Hunok opposed the local slave trade. Everyone is a selfish scumbag. The craziest part, he figured out this betrayal script 5 years ago, and yet, the madman still carried them through the campaign. The fading demon is utterly brain-broken. Why would anyone do that? With godlike stats. Why didn't Hunok just go rogue and slaughter this whole cursed planet of traitors? Hunok sighs heavily. Because turning evil takes effort, and all he ever wanted was a one-way ticket back home. Flashback to Earth. The year 2005. Before this mess, our main character was just an exhausted 30-year-old office worker grinding away at a mundane corporate life, until getting truck-hunned into a summoned hero. A desperate goddess literally begged him to save her dying fantasy realm. As an avid manga nerd, Hunok instantly recognized the classic Isekai plot, but reality hit like a freight train. It wasn't a harem comedy, but hellish chaos. He searched everywhere for a logout button, only to find one brutal solution. Complete the main quest, slay the monsters, play the hero, and drag the world from the brink. Left with zero choice, he spent 2 miserable decades bathing in blood, grinding endless levels, butchering nightmare creatures, and worst of all, dealing with absolute human garbage, like that one time he dragged a half-frozen, dying kid out of a freezing blizzard, only for the disgusting villagers to refuse medical help. Claiming the kid wasn't worth the expensive potions, he swallowed his burning rage and kept playing the hero. On top of that, he had to survive absolute medieval trash conditions. No plumbing, terrible medicine, and zero basic hygiene. What a complete joke. A tiny scratch meant losing an arm, the healers all drafted. The common folks were just left to rot. I saved a kid from beasts. And some shady priest immediately interrogated me. How did I survive? Pure spite. They even roasted so-called heretics alive, claiming it was just to keep the city warm. One crazy nun accused me of using demonic powers. She demanded I surrender the kid and obey the goddess, threatening me with an instant exorcism. Honestly, watching this circus, Hyunho realized the real final bosses weren't even the monsters. It was these absolute lunatics. They treated basic human rights and common decency like mythical concepts. Yet, he survived this absolute nightmare for 20 years. Finally hitting his breaking point, he screamed at the heavens. It was time the goddess paid her absolute debts. A blinding divine light shattered the gloomy, cursed sky. The goddess praised his solo victory over the beast. Hyunho immediately pulled out their literal verbal contract. The deal was simple. Save the world, go back to Earth, and keep all his precious memories intact. But the goddess whined. Why leave when he was basically overpowered enough to dethrone her? She warned that going back meant losing his legendary status. On Earth, he would be a total nobody again. Hyunho shut that down instantly. He did not care about power. He just wanted out of this hellhole. Pouting, she declared this world was finally safe. Asking one last time if he would regret his stubborn choice. 0 regrets. Dropping his bloodstained spear, he stared at his scarred hands. He was finally escaping this absolute nightmare of a dimension. Boom. A massive pillar of holy light swallowed him completely. Right then, she casually dropped a massive bomb. His original earthly body was toast. So he was getting a random fresh vessel. Wait, whose body am I getting? He vaguely promised he would survive and instantly hung up. Honestly, even being reborn as a literal pigeon beat staying in that cursed timeline. Snap back to reality, his eyes snapped open. Welcome to Earth. Year 2025. Our legendary hero was now Yu Chanseok, staring into the bedroom mirror. He gasped. Realizing all his limbs were securely attached, the ultimate proof, he twisted a sink handle and cried tears of joy. Crystal clear tap water, a luxury that Garbage World never had. He spotted an electric stove and nearly proposed to it. No more rubbing sticks together or choking on campfire smoke just to eat. But above all this tech, he desperately, painfully missed the heavenly crunch of crispy fried chicken. The pure ecstasy of a boring, normal life completely washed over him. Sure, 20 years had passed since 2005. But Chanseok literally could not care less. After surviving 2 decades of absolute misery, adapting to modern society would be a total cakewalk. But the universe hates him, right as Chanseok confidently declared his peaceful retirement. A massive, suspicious beam crashed into the distant skyline, completely ignoring that ominous red flag. Our oblivious hero focused on his true priority. A glorious, steaming hot shower. Such magical plumbing was impossible in that medieval hell. He even blasted the air conditioning like a king. After bathing in monster blood for years, this modern comfort felt illegally luxurious. Staring at the beautifully clear, smog-free sky, he chuckled. The year 2025 sure looked bright. He was ready to learn new hobbies. Record scratch. His hard-earned peace shattered instantly when a shadow blocked his 10th floor window. Not a pigeon. A literal, drolling monster. Sirens blared. An automated speaker casually announced a rift outbreak, politely demanding all residents panic and sprint to the underground bunker. Crash. A whole pack of ugly beasts smashed through the pristine glass, ruining his perfectly clean apartment. He bolted up the stairwell. What kind of absolute sick joke was the universe playing on him right now? Performing a crazy parkour stunt out a hallway window, he completely bamboozled the monsters and barely slipped away. Mid-sprint, he bumped into a random kid, snapping into hero mode. He yelled at the brat to hustle toward the safety bunker, but the kid just stared blankly, tilted his head, and casually asked if the mister wanted to hunt some monsters instead. Brain actively short-circuiting. Our poor hero listened as this toddler casually dropped the lore. Earth had been fighting these ugly beasts for 13 long years. These magical portals, called rifts, literally just started spawning monsters everywhere. And nobody had a single clue why. Despite the terrifying apocalypse, this absolute mad lad of a kid refused to run. He wanted blood, staring in pure disbelief. Our retired hero confirmed this absurd reality with the smirking kid. His peaceful retirement was officially canceled. Right then, annoyance boiled within him. 20 grueling years crawling out of hell to reach home, only to find Earth transformed into an apocalyptic wasteland. He gritted his teeth. This absolute mess had to be that blasted goddess's doing, dodging questions about his total ignorance. He smoothly lied, claiming he just relocated from the United States. The gullible kid swallowed the lie. dropping heavy lore about this worldwide catastrophe. Awkwardly, Hunuk pivoted the conversation, asking about these so-called hunters. The boy's eyes sparkled, totally fanboying over Lee Sion, a superstar hunter from the Janab Guild. Apparently, this guy was an absolute legend globally, famous for annihilating monsters with a ridiculously oversized greatsword. Hunuk zoned out, his mind racing. How on earth were fragile, ordinary humans surviving clashes against these grotesque beasts? But before he could connect the dots, a sinister, squelching noise echoed nearby. He clamped a hand over the kid's mouth. Bloodthirsty predators were closing in fast. 5 auras. Wait. He outran 6 earlier. That meant one sneaky bastard was lurking in the shadows. In his past life, these mobs would be mere target practice, but locked in this unawakened, fragile body, his actual combat stats were a total mystery. Still, leaving a helpless kid as monster bait just was not his style. The catch 0 weapons, brawling 6 beasts barehanded was pure suicide. Suddenly, a nostalgic tingle brushed his skin. Puremana, that electric hum was undeniable. It was the exact same energy from the hellish realm. Blurring forward, he unleashed pitch-black flames, melting a monster's ugly face instantly. Jackpot. His mana manipulation was fully intact. After 20 years of pure survival, channeling magic was like breathing. The legendary flames of paradox remained carved into his very soul. Sure, the output was heavily nerfed, but for these trash-tier mobs it was absolute overkill. In mere seconds, the surrounding beasts were reduced to piles of smoking ash. The kid's jaw dropped to the floor, completely starstruck by the explosive display. Meanwhile, Hyunok Yosaihil, deeply disappointed that basic magic was hyped up as some ultra-rare superpower here, he offered a lazy shrug, glad the brat was unharmed, inwardly cringing at Earth's fancy unique skill terminology. Suddenly, the kid grabbed a stick, boldly declaring some random YouTube. Hunter taught him to always double-tap defeated monsters. He charged at the smoldering corpses, practically diving headfirst back into mortal danger. Hunuk immediately snapped a warning. The flames of paradox never extinguish until the target's life force is utterly annihilated. Basically, if the black fire is still dancing, that monster is still kicking. A half-charred beast lunged at the boy. In a flash, Hunuk materialized, brutally crushing the monster's skull with his bare palm. I do not know what a YouTube is, he deadpanned, but stopped trusting it. He casually swiped the wooden stick, gripping the flimsy branch. He watched the pinned monster crumble into blackened charcoal under his overwhelming grip. Hunuk effortlessly cleaved the remaining beasts in half with the stick. The kid gaped, convinced he was a hidden master hunter. Yet, Hunuk's inner monologue was just a long, exhausted sigh of utter disappointment. Finally back on modern Earth, and he still could not escape that sickening, metallic stench of monster blood, decades of hellish grinding for a peaceful retirement. And this was his reward. Earth was just a reskinned fantasy dungeon, and he was absolutely livid. Pushing through the annoyance, they marched onward, finally arriving at the fortified underground sanctuary. The instant they stepped inside, a frantic woman sprinted over, weeping, a messy mixture of pure relief and sheer terror. She bowed endlessly, showering him with gratitude. Hunuk brushed it off as nothing, but his sharp eyes quickly scanned her appearance, spotting high-end designer clothes and dazzling crystal earrings. It clicked. He had just saved an insanely wealthy, spoiled young master. That explained the brat's cluelessness, but the heartwarming reunion vanished as a massive, violent tremor rocked the entire shelter. Boom. A terrifying beast obliterated the reinforced concrete wall with one devastating strike. It was a hulking, eyeless mutant boasting a grotesquely massive maw. The aura radiating off this thing screamed boss-level threat. Absolute pandemonium erupted. Survivors scrambled like headless chickens, trapped between the nightmare inside and the horde waiting outside, cornered by certain death. The trembling kid tugged his sleeve, begging him to just run away this time. Meanwhile, Hunuk's eye twitched. Was a cozy bed and decent takeout too much to ask? Why did trouble constantly follow him, glaring at the chaos? He seriously wondered if wishing for a normal, boring life was the ultimate forbidden magic. Sighing deeply, he asked the Golden Spoon Kid why he even wanted to be a hunter when he could safely flex his wealth instead. With tears welling up, the boy revealed a tragic backstory. His father was slaughtered by a beast during a brutal corrosion-type dungeon break. Time ran out. His father sacrificed everything, ensuring the boy survived the nightmare. Despite his fragile state, The tearful boy boldly swore to slaughter monsters and protect humanity. It sounded like pure childish fantasy, yet it carried absolute, world-shaking sincerity. Smiling, Hunok validated that courageous spark, declaring the kid had true hunter potential, but leave saving the world to others. He advised, just as the panicked mother dragged the boy away. Suddenly, an overwhelming, blood-curdling aura crashed down upon them. Glancing back, the kid watched Hunok effortlessly incinerate the colossal beast using terrifying black flames. Brushing off the ash, Hunok smirked, claiming world-saving was strictly a job for seasoned veterans. That perfectly summarized his ridiculous life. After spending 20 grueling years fighting monsters in another dimension, he finally returned home. Shockingly, despite literally saving a magical realm, he absolutely refused to fight Earth's monsters. His grand hero days were over. Now, he literally could not care less. Instead, he fully embraced the glorious slacker lifestyle, binging video games, junk food, and soda. He worshipped modern miracles like smartphones, doing absolutely everything with a few lazy taps. His endless food delivery binge only stopped when his bank account hit rock bottom. This body belonged to Yu Chanseok, a former logistics worker fired after a corrosion rift destroyed his company. He had been burning through his severance pay, but now he desperately needed cold, hard cash. Getting a normal corporate gig was impossible after a 20-year magical Isekai vacation. Plus, with monster rifts everywhere, companies were ridiculously picky about hiring new corporate slaves. Regardless, a guy needs funds to survive. Suddenly, a hunter recruitment ad caught his eye. With his insane combat experience, it was perfect. Arriving at the Hunter Association, he found a massive crowd chasing the exact same dream. Hunting monsters was now the ultimate flex profession. Everyone craved fame, massive wealth, and absolute superhuman power, but reality is cruel, and only the elite survive. Suddenly, a legendary VIP swaggered into the lobby, flanked by bodyguards. It was Lee Se-yoon, a top 10 global powerhouse from the prestigious Jonab Guild. Her overwhelming aura instantly commanded the room's total awe, blending lethal strength with celebrity status. She effortlessly stole the absolute spotlight. Up in the VIP stadium stands, Se-yoon's sharp eyes analyzed the recruitment tournament's hottest prospect. Han Sang-ah was the undeniable fan-favorite rookie. This explosive rookie wielded rare electrokinesis, making her a highly coveted, high-voltage asset. Watching the sparks fly, Se-yoon jokingly wondered if she could double as a portable phone charger. An assistant's sweat dropped, clarifying she was a lethal combatant, not a battery, praising the rookie's immense combat potential. Yet, Se-yoon remained completely unfazed. Flashy skills meant absolutely nothing without real battlefield bloodshed. Another aide agreed, noting pampered academy kids usually crumble when facing a genuine, chaotic monster rift. Without real life or death pressure, evaluating her true combat rating was entirely impossible. Se-yoon nodded sharply. Sterile training exercises simply could not replicate the terror of actual slaughter. Breaking the serious tension, she playfully tossed a piece of sweet candy to her loyal aide. The other assistant pouted, feeling totally left out. Still, Se-yoon's harsh truth remained absolute. Fresh graduates inevitably freeze in terror when real monsters bare their fangs. The flashy rookie still needed serious polishing. Suddenly, the booming stadium announcer kicked off the brutal trials. Se-yoon leaned back, ready to weed out the weak and hunt for genuine, battle-forged diamonds. The announcer's voice suddenly echoed, highlighting a completely bizarre, unregistered wildcard stepping into the arena, an absolute nobody without any formal academy training, casually strolling into a life-or-death deathmatch. The fearless challenger, Yu Chanseok. Hearing it aloud, Yu Chanok winced. He still wasn't quite used to this fake new identity. The rules were crystal clear. No personal weapons allowed, and absolutely no killing strikes permitted. Chanok sighed, questioning his life choices. He only signed up for this gig to make some quick cash. Sure, being a hunter meant dealing with the exhausting, dramatic burden of saving a doomed, collapsing world. But honestly, his grand ambition was just to eat premium beef, sleep in, and live comfortably. His spear-wielding opponent scoffed in absolute disbelief. To this arrogant rookie, fighting an uneducated, non-academy, nobody was a total insult. But our guy Chanok knew the truth. He needed a flashy victory here to secure that comfortable paycheck. The match started. The cocky rookie lunged forward with a blazing, flame-coated strike, expecting a completely effortless win. Whoosh, Chanok vanished like a ghost, casually sidestepping the flames and completely ignoring his own spear, he materialized right beside the shocked rookie. Why even bother drawing a weapon against such pathetic, amateur child's play? Bam! A ruthless gut punch landed, followed by a foot stomp to trap him, and a brutal left hook. The arrogant kid instantly crumpled to his knees, completely knocked out cold. Chanak Sahil. The match was already over. He kept his spear sheathed purely to avoid accidentally murdering the fragile kid. An absolute, overwhelming curb stomp. Honestly, fighting these clueless rookies felt like bullying toddlers. Up in the VIP seats, Lee Se-yoon leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with sudden curiosity about this mystery man. Scanning his pathetic resume, she saw he was just a delivery guy with absolutely zero mana inside his body, which made his ridiculous speed completely impossible. A clueless assistant babbled about massive mana costs or pure dumb luck. Smirking, Se-yoon casually shoved a piece of candy into his mouth, silently telling the fool to shut up. She noted that it wasn't a pathetic lack of mana, but a terrifyingly deliberate suppression of his aura. Just how monstrous was this lazy delivery guy? Back on the battlefield, Chanak realized his paycheck demanded a bit more effort. He strolled up to the next trembling victim, kindly promising he wouldn't kill him. Smack. One casual punch to the jaw ended it instantly. The announcer awkwardly declared Chanak the winner again. The judges' table erupted into utter chaos, completely baffled by how a zero-stat nobody was sweeping the entire floor. While the old fools argued over the impossible, Se-yoon made her move. She had to witness this monster's true depth. Ditching the VIP box, she marched straight to the association's president. Down below, Chanak's hilarious one-punch rampage continued. Hammers, enchanted blades, fancy swords, it didn't matter. He casually slapped down fully armed warriors using nothing but his bare, bored hands. These so-called elites were absolutely pathetic. None of these kids could ever compare to his 20 brutal years, surviving in an apocalyptic hellscape, yawning through his victories. Chanak wondered if anyone here had a pulse. Finally, a real challenger stepped into the ring. The golden child herself appeared. Han Sunga, the tournament's absolute strongest prodigy, stood before him as the final boss. The crowd went wild. Surely, the Academy genius could crush this overpowered, mysterious nobody. Glancing at the girl, Chanak nodded slightly. Unlike the garbage before, she actually had a dense, respectable pool of mana inside her. Naturally, Sunga reeked of elite arrogance. She mocked his street brawler style, entirely convinced his winning streak was nothing but pure, absurd, dumb luck. Chanok smirked. Do they teach you that cringe, robotic villain speech at the Hero Academy? Glaring, Sunga gripped her hilt, insulting his total lack of flashy magic skills. Still, she promised to crush him without holding a single ounce of power back. Chanak simply shrugged. I do have a skill. I just don't want to accidentally turn you into a corpse. The bell rang. Sunga exploded forward like a flash of lightning, drawing her blade with terrifying speed. Swish. She struck empty air. Shock painted her face as Chanak casually drifted away. Praising her neat little trick, he completely dissected her art. She was using magnetic electricity in her sheath to rocket the blade out faster. A very clever gimmick. However, he cheerfully exposed its fatal weakness. By maximizing straight speed, she left herself completely defenseless. A ridiculously fast, straight-line attack is still just a straight line. Too easy to dodge. Han Sanga scoffed at his cocky analysis, boasting she had crushed countless rookies using this exact technique. She switched gears, unleashing a wild barrage of lightning. Hyunwook yawned at her predictable attack patterns, until he realized it was merely a clever distraction. Suddenly, her entire battle strategy shifted gears. She summoned an absolute thunderstorm of violent electricity, cranking her destructive power to the max. Hyunwook instantly noticed her massive blunder. She was recklessly overloading her mana circuits. At this crazy pace, she would literally fry her own internal organs. Being the nice guy he is, he decided to wrap this up fast. He dashed in, casually advising her to raise her left hand if it hurt. Then, bam, he delivered a devastating gut punch that shattered her absolute defense like cheap glass. From that moment, the epic duel became an absolute, embarrassing beatdown. Her shattered guard collapsed. Hyunwook unleashed a merciless combo of brutal strikes, pummeling her relentlessly until her lights went out completely. The match was over. The judges sat completely paralyzed, their jaws dropping at the absolute madness they just witnessed. The Academy's arrogant top dog had been completely and hilariously utterly crushed. Walking away, Hyunwook admitted she had decent talent, But her fatal flaw was glaring. She relied entirely on fancy magic and completely skipped physical training. Even while practically unconscious, the stubbornly defeated girl weakly tried to stand up. Hilariously enough, Hyunwook noticed her trembling left hand was raised straight up in the air. Exactly as he instructed, he chuckled at her surprising obedience. But suddenly, an association staff member frantically rushed the stage, whispering to the announcer, who immediately demanded the crowd's total silence. The entire tournament schedule suddenly changed. They told our champion to take a quick breather. A confused Hyunwook blinked, wondering if he had not literally just won the whole thing. However, they announced a surprise boss battle. The tournament champion was forced into a sudden exhibition match against a pro-active hunter. This crazy twist was ordered directly by the absolute top brass. The VIPs smirked, already anticipating the chaos. When the mystery boss stepped up, Hyunwook was clueless. But the screaming crowd proved she was an absolute superstar. He squinted at the stage, figuring this overpowered veteran simply wanted to aggressively test a rookie's shiny new skills. This exact cliché scenario gave him major déjà vu from his violent past life in the other dimension. To him, this was just another Tuesday. A terrifying figure approached, dragging a ridiculously massive greatsword. She offered a politely terrifying apology for the sudden ambush, confessing she just had to test his legendary hype herself, introducing herself as Lee Si-hee of the elite Janabub Guild. She smirked, teasing that this amateur tournament was way beneath a monster like him. She boldly challenged him to a brutal one-on-one duel, casually adding that he could totally run away if he was too scared. Feeling her monstrous aura leak out, Hyunwook instantly sweated. This crazy woman existed in a completely different, terrifying dimension of power. Her passive mana pressure was absolutely ridiculous, proving she was undeniably a walking natural disaster, one of the world's absolute strongest, trapped in this weak, unawakened mortal body. He knew surviving this clash would be a totally hilarious nightmare, even armed to the teeth. His actual victory odds were sitting at a solid 0%, yet, with zero hesitation, he accepted her suicidal challenge, bragging that his tank was totally full. He earned a smirk from Si-hee as she asked if he was hyped. She grinned, saying she was totally hyped too, completely ignoring poor, defeated Han Song being dragged away in the background, literally foaming at the mouth. He needed absolute maximum exposure from this tournament, and beating an S-class hunter was basically the ultimate golden ticket. So, he decided to use this suicidal brawl to massively inflate his future corporate market value. The crowd instantly went totally wild. The announcer screamed as Lee Si-hee flashed a terrifying grin, fully intending to mercilessly crush him into absolute dust. Her strikes felt like falling meteors, even desperately blocking with his trusty spear. The absurd kinetic force sent him skidding violently backward, sweating bullets. He barely managed to parry a lethal strike and dodge back, gasping for air. He realized this insane woman literally left zero blind spots. His exhausted mortal body was reaching total physical failure. Si-hee pouted playfully, complaining she was totally disappointed. She finally found a fun toy to warm up with, but he was already completely out of gas. Still, she threw him a bone, praising him for miraculously surviving a full 5 minutes against her monstrous power. Feeling generous, she decided to mercifully end his suffering so he could finally nap. She charged forward, swinging her massive greatsword for a totally devastating one-shot knockout. In that terrifying split second, his internal system flashed red. He possessed absolutely zero mana left, and the surrounding atmosphere was completely sucked dry, left with literally zero options. He frustratingly decided to unleash his ultimate cheat card, the legendary Flames of Paradox. Boom, the devastating greatsword struck him head-on. At least, that is exactly what Si-hee thought, feeling the satisfyingly meaty impact of a clean, decisive hit. But her smirk instantly vanished. He was completely unscathed and had already effortlessly magically backed away. Looking closer, she gasped. His entire body was forged from living flames. It was like the inferno devoured him, only to rebirth him from the ashes. This was his absolute trump card, the exact same legendary skill he spammed constantly before making his grand return to Earth. He even kept his clothes completely fireproof, bending the blaze to his absolute will. This insane skill literally used abstract concepts like logic and memory as kindling, but right now he was using a completely different fuel source. He was literally burning his own pure exhaustion. His speed exploded. He launched a relentless assault, his spear violently clashing against Lee Sion's blade. The heavy impacts only made her battle-crazy blood boil even hotter. The two traded devastating blows in an earth-shattering clash, but as the dust settled, Sion started sensing something completely bizarre. The mana density around them was violently spiking and crashing. It was totally unstable. Acting like a chaotic storm, she narrowed her eyes, suspecting the crazy rookie was using raw ambient mana as firewood. Meanwhile, Hyunsuk fully grasped his own absurd power. Since the Flames of Paradox generated immense mana by incinerating abstract concepts, he cleverly used that very mana as a spark, but the core fuel was his own dead-tired fatigue. This created an infinite loop, constantly pumping out explosive amounts of energy. Mid-battle, it finally clicked. His ultimate specialty was actually a brutal war of attrition, an endless grind he could keep up forever. Panting and drenched in sweat, he smirked. He bragged he could go a few more rounds, throwing a cheeky provocation right at Seon. "Do you fall for guys who never know when to quit?" he teased. She deadpanned, claiming she absolutely hated that exact type. But here is the catch. Just like a scorched tree turns to useless ash, his paradox flames also leave behind heavy residue once fully burned. Once all fuel vanishes, the raging fire just dies out. Seon casually checked the timer. Their insane deathmatch had lasted exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes. She smirked, asking if he still had gas in the tank. Hyunsuk immediately surrendered, waving his hands and begging for sweet mercy. And just like that, the announcer grabbed the mic. Despite the rookie's heroic struggle, the undeniable winner was Lee Seon. Post-match, she casually pulled a lollipop out of her cleavage. Her poor assistant's jaw dropped as she tossed it to Hyunsuk as a sweet reward, flicking him her sleek business card. She winked. She told him to call her for a proper chat, before strutting away like an absolute boss. As the announcer called the champion backstage for her prize, Hyunsuk stared at the card. Was this mysterious Janabi group actually an elite hunter agency? A bit later, happily sucking on his hard-earned lollipop, our main character finally started messing around with his brand new smartphone. To his absolute shock, his digital hunter license was saved right inside. This modern tech was mind-blowing. He could access exclusive hunter forums, the underground gear market, and even snag sweet discount deals. It had emergency alerts, breaking news, and direct messaging. He nodded in pure awe. This magical artifact called a smartphone was ridiculously overpowered. Suddenly, a massive wall of muscle blocked his path. The giant smirked, claiming our boy looked way more impressive in the flesh than on screen, totally clueless about what was happening. Hyunsuk blinked and bluntly asked who this giant was. The hulking dude shoved a flashy business card into his hand. He proudly introduced himself as Sungyun from the mighty Taebak Guild, oozing with absolute arrogance. The giant claimed he had taken a special liking to him. Under his elite leadership, the rookie was destined for absolute greatness. Honestly, joining a major guild did not sound too bad. But then Seon's face popped into his mind, along with her strict order to call her first. Knowing he had a much hotter priority, he expertly dodged, giving an immediate yes. He pocketed the card with a polite smile, promising to carefully weigh his grand options. Sungyun gave a booming laugh, agreeing that such monumental life choices required serious thought. But then the giant closed the distance, leaning in with a dark, threatening aura. He warned the boy to think very carefully about his next move, tossing a final menacing goodbye. The meathead walked off, the second he was out of sight. Hyunsuk scoffed. There was zero chance he was joining those meatheads at Taebak. Whipping out his trusty new smartphone, he dialed Seon's number. She picked up instantly, demanding his exact coordinates. She ordered him up to the association's second floor, directing him to a hidden spot called The Hut. Turns out, it was an exclusive VIP diner right inside the building. Strolling inside, a cheerful waitress welcomed him warmly. He immediately spotted Seon, casually chilling at a table and waiting for her favorite rookie. She raised an eyebrow, surprised he actually managed to navigate there so fast, and patted the seat right across from her. Catching the annoyed look plastered on his face, Seon leaned forward, asking exactly whose toes he had already managed to step on. Hyunseok sighed, ranting about the giant musclehead who basically tried to forcefully adopt him into the Taebak Guild. Seon snorted. She explained that with a heavyweight like Sungyun marking his territory, the smaller guilds would be absolutely terrified to even look his way. Curious, Hyunsuk leaned in. Did that intimidating rule apply to her mysterious Janabi faction too? She flashed a wicked grin and simply said no. Her blunt answer shattered his expectations. She had zero intention of locking him into a boring guild contract. Instead, the boss lady dropped a totally unexpected counteroffer. She wanted him as her personal freelance operative, no binding guild chains. Just pure freedom. Hyunsuk tilted his head, his brain struggling to process this crazy idea. Wait, Going solo as a rogue hunter without a mega guild backing you was actually a thing. Seeing his hilariously confused face, Seon began dropping some serious industry knowledge. She explained that a corporate meathead like Sung-yoon would only offer a pathetic rookie-tier contract, still totally lost in this modern world. Hyun-seok scratched his head, asking what the heck a junior role even meant. Guild Hierarchy 101. We have got rookies, veterans, and the big shot executives, grunts sweat under team captains, who take their marching orders from the corporate brass. Those executives, they get a juicy slice of the guild's profit pie. Basically corporate partners. Hyun-seok nodded. He knew the history. The first ever guild ran exactly like a ruthless Korean megacorporation, but Lee Se-yoon smirked. Rules are meant to be broken. Build enough hype and monstrous power, and you can skip straight to the top. Ding, a light bulb went off in Hyun-seok's head. Clout really is the ultimate currency. Spot on. She praised his quick wits, tossing him a sweet reward. She watched him unwrap it. Hyun-seok chewed and asked, "Are VIP connections?" "Everything here." Because honestly, his contact list was totally empty. His resume blank. And actual combat experience, 0. Se-yoon just grinned. That is exactly where she comes in. Her freelance pitch was not just a job offer. It was his golden ticket to leveling up in this cutthroat society. Hyun-seok squinted, suspicious of this free lunch. Her simple answer, she was placing a massive bet on his potential. Shower him with perks now. And when he inevitably goes pro, his loyalty would naturally belong to her Jonup guild. To sweeten the deal, she smoothly slid a confidential envelope right across the table. No pressure. Totally his call. Inside lay a high-stakes mission brief targeting Incheon, right next to Gyeongdo Island. 2 years ago, a dungeon break went catastrophically wrong, birthing a nasty corrosion zone in that exact spot. Hyun-seok tilted his head. So, just a simple cleanup job of sweeping away the rot. Not quite. They needed to hunt down every single trace of corruption, ensuring the infectious filth had not spread elsewhere. Scanning the terrifying details, Hyun-seok caught the deadline. He had exactly 1 month to prepare, 5 million upfront, and a cool 15 million waiting at the finish line. Pocket change for risking his neck, but he grinned anyway. This was the perfect stage to grind experience and build his reputation. Leaning in closer, she demanded his final answer. Was he taking her golden handshake or walking away? Latter. Cruising in her sleek car, Se-yoon's assistant finally asked the burning question about the rookie's true worth. A mere civilian punching his way to the tournament finals with bare hands, that alone was absolutely mind-blowing. Plus, he survived 4 brutal hours against her. Over the phone, a voice asked if she played nice. She smirked. Of course, she was a legendary 10-year battlefield veteran after all. If she had unleashed her true aura, she would have crushed him like a bug. Still, surviving her for 4 hours. Pure insanity. She swore even in her next life, she would never meet another absolute freak like him. Meanwhile, eager hunters began swarming toward Gyeongdo Island. Crash, pay, lethal danger, did not matter. The chance to prove their worth drew a massive crowd of daredevils. Back at headquarters, Se-yoon reported the mission details directly to her big boss. He scoffed. Potential means nothing without field results. If the kid cannot survive alongside hardcore veterans, his talent is garbage. Se-yoon chuckled darkly. If that was his only fear, he could sleep like a baby. She had perfectly calculated his squad, matching him with absolute equals, trusting his top executive. The boss suddenly asked a dangerous question. What happens when this rookie reaches her monstrous level? Her answer shattered his ego. If Hyun-seok hits hair tier, he would utterly dethrone the boss himself. 1 month before deployment, an epic package dropped at Hyun-seok's doorstep. Inside lay a massive, glorious spear, plus a top-tier hunter elixir, the ultimate lifesaver for deadly emergencies. This liquid gold was packed with pure, highly condensed mana. Normally, hunters process mana like drinking slowly from a simple water filter. They suck in dirty air, purify it inside their bodies, and squeeze out the energy. But the elixir, it bypasses all that junk, instantly injecting pure power straight into the veins. For our main character, this was a game changer. He forcefully rips mana straight from the wild atmosphere. Constant use would rapidly evolve his internal mana circuits. Soon, he would juggle oceans of energy, but right now his frail beginner circuits were a massive, frustrating bottleneck. But thanks to that sweet elixir and a solid month of grinding, he was totally ready to shatter his limits. Fast forward to Gyeongdo Island. Hyun-seok joins the massive herd of nervous hunters, tossed into Group 8. He gets a surprise visit from Han Sang-ah. He compliments her hair game, but she deadpans that she woke up like this, blaming her previous bad hair day on static. She happily notes they are stuck in the same squad. Teamwork makes the dream work. Right, when he asks why, she straight up admits he is way stronger. She basically wants a front row seat to his carry. Dodging the praise, he whines about his heavy bag, sparking her sudden gym bro interrogation about his back routine. She interrogates him about spinal health and chronic pain. Hyunsuk sweat drops, realizing she is pulling the exact same stunt from the arena. Yep. Zero comedic timing. Anyway, a staff member rallies Group 8 to drop the quest details, spotting the noobs in the crowd. The guy pauses to drop a quick lore dump on everyone. Trojan rifts are ranked from Class 3 up to Class 1, plus the weird unclassified ones. Class 1 means absolute nightmare fuel. Also, the very first rift popping up in a zone gets dubbed the Big Bad Alpha. Right now, this island's Alpha Rift is chilling inside a creepy northern church. It is unranked, but since these things aggressively level up, everyone is warned to stay completely far away. Their squad's quest objective, dead simple: scout the borders, hunt down side rifts, and smash them to pieces. Whispers break out. Is this just a brutal filter to wipe out the rookies? Nearing the island, players start panicking about some super creepy Ominusora, crying about their blood freezing over Hyunsuk's size. Talk about massive drama queens. Green light to drop. They are given a panic button for the control room, plus a mandatory good luck. The squad scrambles. And of course, the veteran players immediately hijack the strategy, totally ignoring the newbies. Doing the math on exploring 2 zones in 7 days, Hyunsuk pitches setting up a home point at Hwagasa Temple. Some snobby guy with glasses side-eyes him. Why the heck should they pick that random spot? Hyunsuk logically points out that the temple offers a killer bird's-eye view of the entire map. You can basically spy on the neighboring zone from the top. It is basic gamer logic. The vets hard reject the idea, whining about the climb and panicking over getting trapped on a mountain. Hyunsuk is baffled by their awful tactics. But these stubborn old-timers absolutely refuse to follow a rookie. Hyunsuk sighs internally. Isekai or not, there are always absolute idiots who completely ignore basic logic. Whatever. He drops it. Fine. Time to play solo. He suggests splitting the party, trekking up to the temple. He realizes he got 2 followers, Sang-ah, and that random beach guy, Sang-ah, tagging along was obvious. But this mystery dude, totally suspicious. Sensing the guy's crazy mana pool, Hyunsuk calls him out. Are you Kim Min-jae? Why are you stalking us? Min-jae nervously admits he wanted to babysit the poor rookies. Hyunsuk actually appreciates the gesture. Finally, a teammate with actual brain cells, but mid-hike, Hyunsuk slams on the brakes. He shushes them instantly. Peeking through the bushes, they spot a terrifying horde of fanged, pointy-eared monsters scaling the cliffs. Min-jae panics hard. Over 50 mobs, we need to run. Now, run please. Hyunsuk smirks, casually asking Min-jae what his special skill is. Min-jae chokes. Are you seriously fighting an army? Hyunsuk shrugs. That is literally our job description. Bro, skill check. Now, pyromancy. Got it. Hyunsuk grins, instantly cooking up a crazy raid plan. Wait for my signal. Fireboy, Sang-ah eagerly asks for her quest roll. While Min-jae sweats bullets about this suicidal idea, he begs to hit the SOS radio. Too many mobs. But Hyunsuk shuts that down. No time for backup. The other noobs are miles away hugging the beach. While they rushed the absolute high ground advantage, waiting for slowpoke rescues. That is a total wipe. If this monstrous horde scatters now, the entire map is completely doomed. Min-jae could not argue with that flawless logic. Plus, those other petty hunters would probably leave them hanging after their previous little spat anyway. Cornered, Hyuno declares they have to strike right now. Sure, the odds look terrible, but a well-timed ambush could absolutely flip this entire battle on its head, scraping his spear through the dirt. He maps out the enemy lines and drops his master plan. Min-jae drops a massive fireball dead center to kick things off, while Hyuno sweeps the flanks to block their retreat. Sanga acts as the cleanup crew, blitzing the stragglers with sheer speed. Minya stars in absolute shock. Hyuno's battle strategy is ridiculously precise, almost like a veteran who hunts these specific monsters for breakfast. Taking the high ground on the cliffside, Min-jae finally unleashes his blazing inferno. Boom, the blazing sphere scores a direct hit, instantly turning a whole pack of monsters into pure ash. Punting. The mage warns he needs a cooldown. Hyuno just yells at him to prep the next shot, before recklessly charging headfirst into the blazing chaos. For him, battlefield efficiency is absolutely everything. Tearing through the monster horde like a scythe, His spear ruthlessly pierces throats and severs limbs with terrifyingly perfect precision to survive until the next magic strike. Every single team member simply has to execute their assigned part flawlessly. Huno locks down the perimeter, desperately trapping the horde. He cannot solo an entire army alone, which makes his strategic assignment so crucial. As the spearman tanks the overwhelming front line, Sanga ruthlessly slaughters any beast that slips through the cracks. Her blinding speed completely obliterates the stragglers. Moments later, Minjae loudly declares his blazing magic is fully reloaded. Huno barks a quick confirmation, instantly vaulting backward to clear the explosive blast zone. The searing spell crashes into the mountain. A massive shockwave wipes out the remaining horde, ending the absolute bloodbath in mere minutes. Just as victory settles, the peaceful vibe instantly shatters. Out of nowhere, Minjae levels a gun straight at Huno. The spearman aggressively flinches, bracing for an absolute betrayal. False alarm, the mage awkwardly asks him to step aside and casually shoots a dead monster instead. It is literally just a microchip tracking gun. He happily explains this handy little tool secures their precious monster loot after the raid, because hauling around giant, heavy monster carcasses is completely miserable. These high-tech tags mark the exact drop locations. Professional scavengers handle the messy cleanup later. They appraise the loot, auction it off, hand over the fat commission, and keep their cut. Huno raises an eyebrow, questioning if that lazy service is actually completely reliable, smirking. Minjae notes that is exactly why legally binding contracts and certified black market brokers are totally essential. The mage then practically worships Huno's insane combat skills, amazed they slaughtered 50 monsters. Sadly, he drops his guard way too early. Bam! A colossal beast crashes down from nowhere. Nearly flattening the trio, Huno moves like lightning, snatching the clueless mage away from certain death. This nightmare shares the same ugly bat-like face, but packs ridiculously massive muscles instead of pathetic little wings. Just one terrifying glance screams the terrible truth. This is the alpha boss, and its power level is absolutely off the charts. Analyzing the deadly threat instantly, Huno makes a totally crazy choice. He will solo the boss. He barks a strict order to back off. If this monster starts a high-speed chase, those two weaklings would honestly be completely dead meat. Minjae nervously doubts the suicide plan, while Sanga visibly sweats over the dangerous gamble, shutting down their complaints. Huno fiercely commands them to stay hidden. He refuses to drag his teammates home in cheap wooden boxes today. Honestly, fighting solo is a massive relief. Now he can unleash his devastating paradox flames without accidentally incinerating his friends. Ending this instantly, still panicking, Minjae charges up his magic anyway, frantically whispering to Sanga if they should break orders and help. Eyes glued to the epic battlefield, she dryly mutters that helping is completely pointless now, because Huno is treating this alpha boss like an absolute joke, weaving through deadly counters. His spear blitzes forward, effortlessly shredding the thick monster hide. With every brutal strike, terrifying black flames erupt from his spearhead, violently clinging to the screaming beast like a cursed plague. As the dark inferno spreads, the heavy beast slows. The cursed flames literally drain its life force. Sanga watches, utterly hypnotized by his flawless, overwhelmingly aggressive technique that completely lacks any blind spots. This absolutely terrifying mastery is definitely not the work of some pathetic rookie. Huno basically bullies the giant monster, perfectly dictating the rhythm of this entirely one-sided slaughter. Suddenly, he casually tosses his main weapon straight into the sky. His teammates gasp at the foolish mistake. But this genius already calculated everything. As the desperate boss lunges for a lethal bite, the falling spear plummets down like a meteor, viciously pinning its ugly skull into the dirt. Yet this ridiculous beast refuses to die, flexing its absurd mutant muscles. Even while roasting in his paradox flames, it twitches. Huno sighs. Time to put this oversized barbecue out of its misery. One ruthless strike later, it is dead. Suddenly, an awkward, pin-drop silence crashes over the battlefield. Minjae and Sanga stand there, absolutely terrified. Minjae's brain short-circuits. How on earth did a rookie just pull that off? Initially, this ugly mutant actually looked like it held the upper hand. Nope, Huno was just playing with his food. Before they could even blink, he had utterly flattened the absolute nightmare of a beast, yanking his spear free. Huno casually asks Minjae if it is normal for VIP-level monsters to crash this island's party. Minjae stammers out that he was wondering the exact same thing. A beast, this nasty screams, Class 3 corrosion zone. Huno tilts his head. Wait, was not this trash tier zone completely unranked? Sweating bullets. Minjae explains the zone probably sneak evolved to Class 3 without warning. Sangha frantically runs through the tutorial briefing in her head. But Minjae shoots her down. If this is not Class 3, then reality is completely broken. The power gap between an unranked dungeon and a Class 3 hellscape is downright astronomical. We are talking heaven and earth here, and if he is right, every hunter here is totally doomed. Minjae begs to retreat and play the hero for the others. Hyunok instantly drops a cold. Hard nope. He bluntly states he is not a magical superhero. Saving every random extra is way above his pay grade. Plus, this is not a babysitting quest. Those thrill-seeking hunters literally signed their own death waivers to be here. Their actual job: hunt down and completely vaporize the threats inside this toxic zone. Sangha Gladys, demanding to know his reaction if the roles were reversed. Would he not cry about fairness and beg for salvation? Hyunok shrugs off her moral high ground. Emotions are cute, but survival requires cold logic. In this brutal profession, fodder characters die. Feelings will not block a monster's claws. Playing the emotional hero in this apocalyptic world is a guaranteed game over. As night falls, our exhausted trio finally crashes at the spooky Wagiesa temple, scanning the creepy architecture with laser focus. Hyunok confirms this sanctuary is completely free of toxic corruption. He interrogates Minjae, who practically jumps, claiming he only sees pitch blackness. But wait, he spots flickering lights far away. Other survivalists lit campfires. Idiots Hyunok internally facepalms. Broadcasting your exact coordinates in a death zone is supreme stupidity. Flexing against low-level mobs is fine, but practically sending a dinner invitation to boss-tier mutants. Absolute suicide. Sighing, he texts teammate anyway, warning them about the secret Class 3 upgrade and telling them to stop acting like suicidal maniacs. During their impromptu campfire chat, Hyunok casually asks for the tutorial on speedrunning a zone closure. Minjae sketches furiously in the dirt. It is all about the shiny main core. Smash the core, and the toxic radiation completely vanishes. A villainous grin crosses Hyunok's face. So it is just a simple fetch quest. Just break the shiny rock, while his two burdens snore away. Hyunok deploys a proximity alarm. No sneaky monsters are snacking on them tonight. Babysitting duties handled. Our overpowered rogue slips into the shadows, sprinting straight down the treacherous mountain. His radar already locked onto the toxic source. He bets he can speed-run this dungeon core before breakfast. Suddenly, an earth-shattering roar interrupts his stealth mission, igniting his blazing aura to light up the pitch-black woods. He locks eyes with an absolute titan. Oh, boy. This menacing juggernaut makes the last monster look like a fluffy poodle. Cut to the Gyeongdo Island control room, which is currently having a total meltdown. Red alerts flash endlessly. Massive casualty reports flood the screens. Team 5 is basically deleted, and Team 3 is getting absolutely crushed. The manager breaks into a cold sweat. Slamming the panic button, he instantly declares a full-scale state of emergency. But amidst this catastrophic screaming, an operator spots a glaring anomaly. Some absolute madman is sprinting straight toward the hellish core. The manager screams to open communications and order a forced tactical retreat. However, their jaws drop upon checking the identification. It is a lunatic from Team 8. Hyunok actually found the true boss room first, desperate. The manager orders an instant terminal link, just to see if this crazy kid is still breathing. A sudden dungeon rank up in this sector is statistically impossible. The manager's brain is completely fried by the unprecedented anomaly. Could this wild rookie seriously be the first one to sniff out the mutation? If anyone holds the cheat codes right now, it is Hyunok. But the moment the audio connects, pure chaotic noise explodes. Hyunok is sprinting for his life, swearing loudly because this oversized boss is way too fast. A titanic beast was hot on his heels, drooling for a human snack. Still, our cocky hero bragged that only his legendary reflexes kept him off the menu. Anyone else, they would be digested monster chow by now. Mid-sprint, he cursed the Hunter Association. Seriously, who rated this nightmare as an unclassified threat? Back at headquarters, an operator begged to mute his endless whining, but the manager ignored the griping. Locking eyes on the actual crisis, the system confirmed Yukon-sek was alive and kicking. Mid-sprint, his tactical gamer brain went to work. One blast of his flames wouldn't fry this ugly bugger. He desperately needed a brand new battle strategy. The game plan: roast it slowly, then skewer it, sadly. This relentless freak was glued to his shadow, offering zero breathing room. To make matters hilariously worse, his mana tank was already flashing red from his earlier flashy stunts. Sparking up his signature flames again, felt like pulling teeth. Being stranded on this island meant zero ambient mana to casually siphon off. Whatever, he just had to squeeze blood from a magical stone, pushing his limits. He sprinted forward until the rift's pulsing core finally appeared. Nearing the grim corrosion portal, he casually mocked the beast. Try to keep up. Ugly, let me check my map before I send you to the afterlife. The control room descended into pure panic. Yukon Sook's tracking dot had just vanished from their radar. He had officially breached the dungeon's belly. Peeking into his stats from the outside was now totally impossible, stepping through the ominous gate. Our hero blinked. Instead of a doom-filled wasteland, a bizarrely tranquil, lush green meadow greeted his eyes. This pristine paradise totally ruined his creepy corrosion zone expectations. Scanning the bright horizon, he scoffed. For an alleged level 3 nightmare, this sandbox felt ridiculously small. Honestly, the power scaling in this place made absolutely zero sense. If this was level 3, were the top-tier zones just relaxing beach resorts, the system was basically trolling him at this point. The moment the creature crashed the party, his sightseeing tour officially ended. Now, it was time to serve up a fresh plate of absolute destruction. Running was no longer an option, the beast roared, charging with murderous intent. While our guy stood there, coolly calculating its impending doom, his flashy paradox flames had one massive glitch. They loved turning absolutely everyone friends, included into extra crispy bacon. Therefore, he needed surgical precision to avoid a friendly fire disaster, loading his trusty spear in terrifying black fire. He smirked. Welcome to his personal slaughter arena. With a devastating thrust, an inferno erupted. The searing blast slammed the monster, instantly barbecuing its grotesque flesh. But he wasn't taking a victory lap yet. The real magic show was just getting started. Inhaling deeply, he locked onto his core. He could feel every drop of stolen mana rushing through his veins like high-octane fuel. His magical circuits were completely upgraded. He realized his mana control was absurdly efficient now, transforming him into an absolute powerhouse. Shrieking in agony, the toasted monster desperately smashed the panic button, calling for backup. In a flash, a swarm of ugly vampire bats filled the sky. Yukon Sook just yawned. Didn't they know cannon fodder meant absolutely nothing to a main character? Unleashing a majestic fire tornado, his raging storm effortlessly vaporized every single pest stupid enough to fly close. Suddenly, a supersonic blur aimed right for his head. With godly reflexes, he blocked the lethal strike with his shaft. Squinting through the smoke, he realized this wasn't some basic mob trash. It was a freakish humanoid bat. Worse yet, this ugly boss monster actually possessed a brain and could talk trash. It only ambushed him when his fiery shield flickered out. This sneaky bastard was definitely playing a genius-level waiting game, dripping with heavy corruption. The monster violently declared that our cocky hero was going straight to the graveyard, unbothered by the death threat. Yukon smiled. With his juicy mana reserves, it was time to spam his ultimate skill. He dashed forward, his earth-shattering spear thrust slammed into the beast, almost snapping its weapon like a cheap twig. Then, he triggered the spear's broken 2-orbit skill. A ghostly echo of his first strike materialized, brutally impaling both the monster's armor and its disgusting body. This insane cheat skill painted a brilliant blue trail, relentlessly looping his original attack like a deadly glitch. A ridiculously simple combo, yet absurdly overpowered. It exponentially multiplied the raw devastation of his opening move. Even if some acrobatic freak dodged the actual blade, they would just catch the phantom echo right to the jaw. Boom! The bat freak perfectly sidestepped the physical spear, only to get absolutely obliterated by the blue phantom thrust to its face. The battle was already over. Radiant beams shredded the beast's body, dissolving it back into pure mana. Moments later, it materialized into a shimmering loot box. Hyunwook popped it open, whistling at the epic loot. Meanwhile, the world outside was literally burning. Absolute panic choked the control room. Separated squads were getting bulldozed by colossal boss monsters, and headquarters had completely lost the plot. The desperate manager knew only a literal miracle could save them now. Suddenly, an operator screamed. A transmission just popped up from Yu Chansu inside the rift. They frantically slammed the message onto the main monitor. It casually read, "Alpha corrosion core destroyed." The entire room froze in shock. The manager collapsed in sheer relief. Their impossible miracle had actually happened. Cut back to our overpowered main character. Hyunwook casually gazed at the stars, inhaling the sweet breeze of an easy victory. Deep inside the rift, Sangha was still fighting for her life, blasting hideous beasts with desperate thunder strikes. Despite her overwhelming talent, Her mana pool was running dangerously dry. Violent tremors shook her lightning-scorched hands. The endless monster waves were just too much. Worse still, Yu Chansu was completely missing. Beside her, Minjae was practically gasping for breath. Terrified they were actually going to die here, Sang-ah saw his shattered resolve mirroring her own. She had absolutely nothing left. As a massive beast lunged, she tried to cast a spell, but her paralyzed muscles refused to obey. She collapsed helplessly. But right before the lethal blow landed, every single monster vanished into thin air. Fast forward to dawn at the island assembly area. Hyunwook scanned the battered and bruised survivors. He casually guessed the mob monsters probably went berserk after he smashed their shiny core. Oops, while he played dumb, the teammate hunters started gossiping wildly. They loudly whispered about Yu Chansu, buzzing with rumors that he solo cleared the entire dungeon, completely ignoring his newfound fan club. Hyunwook casually strolled over to check on Minjae and Sang-ah. Minjae stared at his phone screen, absolutely flabbergasted by the insane truth. Soloing a rift was pure madness, playing the perfect hero. Hyunwook shamelessly texted back that his righteous heart had moved to protect his comrades. Internally, he smirked. Faking a noble reputation was a vital survival skill in this crazy society. He even bragged that if he knew the spawn location sooner, he would have speedrun the whole thing before dinner. Suddenly, a stiff-looking suit walked up, introducing himself as Youngtae, representing the Incheon Northern Branch of the Hunter Association. He nervously asked for a moment. The city mayor desperately requested a private audience. Arriving at the ridiculously massive mansion, Hyunwook felt a bit suspicious. Typical rich old men, always making the real heroes commute to their doorsteps. Still, his gamer brain calculated the incoming quest reward. Time to aggressively negotiate some sweet bonus cash. A polite guide named Lee Piljae bowed respectfully, offering to escort our overpowered main character inside. Walking down the long hall, Piljae revealed the mayor was desperate for this chat. That morning's disaster report from Gyeonggi had literally flipped the entire administration upside down. The big boss even nuked his entire daily schedule just to shake his hand. Playing it cool. Hyunwook shrugged, claiming it was just a light workout. But Piljae wildly shook his head. He practically yelled that soloing a Class 3 rift was world-breaking news, a mythical feat unseen since the legendary era of the Great Pioneer. Hyunwook blinked. Someone else actually pulled off this insane cheat code before that guy was the real monster here. Finally, they entered the massive oak doors of the mayor's office. The frantic mayor immediately apologized for the sudden summon, ordering premium coffee for his VIP guest. He showered Yu Chansu with national hero praises. Apparently, the cursed Gyeondo Island had been a massive headache for the city's budget. They desperately wanted to wipe it off the map. Being broke meant they couldn't afford a top-tier guild's ridiculous mercenary fees. Hyunwook smirked, bluntly reminding him to be grateful for a bargain bin hero. The mayor nervously laughed, then suddenly grew dead serious. The politician gushed over Yu Chansok, a rookie monster slayer debuting in Incheon. Utterly mind-blowing. As the city's mayor, he claimed his chest was practically bursting with civic pride. The brown-nosing was so absurdly thick, our main character nearly coughed up his overpriced latte. Ignoring the coughing fit, the politician kept yapping. Korea is the ultimate safe zone. And Incheon, an infrastructural paradise, all thanks to our glorious airport, pumping endless cargo in and out. Listening to this political garbage, Chanseok zoned it out. Remembering the senior hunter who dragged him here, flashback time, Youngtae had previously asked why he picked the hunter life. The response was zero hesitation, pure alpha. When monsters bring absolute chaos, somebody has to step up and crush them. Youngtae laughed. With that edgy mindset and raw power, stardom was guaranteed in the hunter business. We are talking big money endorsements and primetime variety show gigs. But our guy wasn't sold. What if the blinding spotlight corrupted his inner Sigma mindset? Youngtae dropped the harsh truth. It happens all the time. Rookies get a taste of clout and totally lose their minds. They forget they are supposed to fight monsters. But who can blame them? The corrosion zone is a literal death trap. Meanwhile, Korea remained the ultimate VIP lounge of survival. There was a solid reason everyone called it Earth's final holy sanctuary. Chanseok smirked. Sanctuary or not, cash ruled everything. He already saw right through the system's dirty mechanics. Still, his senior insisted his recent carry job was legendary. Desperate folks were going to treat him like a living messiah. He just prayed the kid wouldn't sell out. Snapping back to the present, Chanseok watched the mayor's blatant scheming. How shameless could this boomer get? Too bad for the politician. Our main character was mentally decades older. Cheap tricks couldn't pierce his psychological armor. He cut to the chase. If the city wanted him as a mascot, the payout better be astronomical. He delivered a critical hit. I hear your poll numbers are tanking. Mr. Major, need a life vest. The politician didn't even flinch. He just chuckled at the rookie's sharp intel. Chanseok waved his smartphone. A simple internet search proved the guy's political career was basically on life support. Caught red-handed. The old fox dropped the act. Time to lay the actual cards on the table. To join the upcoming raid. Our hero absolutely needed official clearance from Incheon's bureaucratic desk jockeys. Boom. The realization hit Chanseok. This wasn't a friendly chat. It was a soft hostage situation. No stamp. No raid. If he played ball, the city would claim him as their shiny new prodigy. If not, the greasy politician would steal his clout for the campaign regardless. Total checkmate. The entire meeting was just a trap to leech off his newfound fame, dangling the carrot. The mayor bragged about his corporate sugar daddies and the VIP doors he could open. He even name-dropped a cheap instant coffee brand. Their current pretty boy model was getting the boot soon. Perfect timing for a badass monster slayer to smile and sell caffeinated bean water. Right. Bam. Chanseok slammed his mug down, shattering the vibe. Did this boomer really think he was some bargain bin sellout? Sure. The world was a depressing mess right now. The news alone could drain your life force. But pimping himself out for cheap coffee, hard pass. With his god-tier skills, he could grab that bag solo anyway. Sweating now. The mayor promised absolute safety and VIP-level raid payouts. Hand-picked easy mode. But Chanseok yawned in his face. This entire pitch was a total snooze fest. With a savage smirk, he told the mayor to go extend that coffee model's contract. He was out. Meanwhile, in a creepy villain lair, a shady hooded dude whined about their Go Island experiment totally flopping, but his lackey grinned. They struck gold anyway. Crystal clear footage of the overpowered freak who wrecked their dungeon. The villain's eyes glowed under his hood. Yo Chanseok. Oh. This rookie was about to be their favorite new toy. Fast forward to the first of the month, Judgment Day for the National Hunter rankings had officially arrived. Usually, the leaderboards were super stagnant. Just popcorn entertainment for the bored masses. But today, the server was about to break. Guildmasters and top tiers alike stared, as Chanseok's name completely disrupted the hierarchy. Then, the real shocker, Yu Chanseok skyrocketed straight into the worldwide top 10 legendary veterans still dominated. Like Lee Yun, famous for his crazy combat efficiency despite having gray hair, plus Kim Chahan sitting at 5th, Cho Yoryam claiming 3rd, and Jang Taeseok dominating 2nd. The absolute peak remained untouchable. Meanwhile, as the ultimate wildcard entry, praises flooded in for shattering records to reach the global stage. Honestly, a seasoned pro soloing a level 3 dungeon barely makes local headlines, but a fresh-faced rookie clearing it alone, that was totally insane. Microphones shoved into his face. Journalists aggressively bombarded him, desperate for his backstory. They endlessly grilled him about hidden sponsors or secret training methods, sweating like a kid failing a pop quiz. Chanseok forced a calm smile, checking his non-existent watch. He firmly declared he only had time for one final question. A reporter desperately begged for an epic hunter catchphrase or his ultimate heroic goal, skipping the cringy hero speech. He flatly refused to promise his best effort. Instead, he coldly dropped the mic. I just bring results. Lauter. Hovering in a chopper, Chanseok stared at a giant apocalyptic pothole that formerly housed Gansel Prison. An elderly official grimly noted this terrifying nightmare was basically everyday scenery across the globe now. He explained that once those nasty corrosion dungeons spawned, entire governments just spectacularly collapsed into total chaos. Chanseok blinked, bluntly asking if nations who failed the dungeon raid basically got deleted. The response was painfully direct. Yep. Countless major capitals were utterly wiped off the map. As the chopper circled the wasteland, the truly ridiculous scale of the devastation became terrifyingly crystal clear. The official brought up the legendary Grade 8 disasters. Ironically, one of those top-tier apocalyptic rifts sat right over the old prison. 13 years ago, this very anomaly spawned out of nowhere, swallowing the entire urban center in a blinding flash of zero warning. A lucky handful dodged the initial blast, but as toxic corrosion flooded the streets, survival became mathematically impossible for the doomed stragglers. In mere days, the booming metropolis literally ceased to exist. Surprisingly, despite Earth throwing epic tantrums, international politics remained stubbornly unchanged, yet local authorities lost all their teeth. Chanseok nodded at the history lesson, wondering why he was stuck on this boring field trip. Then the bombshell dropped. A hothead named Yoon Sung-kyung from the notorious Thai Bok Guild was aggressively hunting him down. The guy was throwing a major tantrum over his rejected recruitment offer. Chan-seok immediately pictured that muscle-brained meathead who tried flexing on him earlier. The president smirked, noting the brute demanded his location, but the association smartly played the privacy card and zipped their lips. However, a serious warning followed. Taebak basically operates like a meathead cult. Beating rookies into submission is totally their standard onboarding process. Chan-seok frowned. Getting jumped by a top-tier brute squad sounded like a massive, deeply annoying headache he couldn't easily punch away. The sly old man accurately guessed our lone wolf main character was severely allergic to guild politics. So, he pitched a clever workaround. To swat away those pesky recruitment bullies, he just needed untouchable status. Something like grabbing the official association president as a personal sugar daddy. With a slick grin, he slid over a shady envelope. Knowing nothing comes free in this world, Chan-seok suspiciously demanded the actual price tag. The old fox smoothly claimed he just wanted bragging rights for sponsoring a rising superstar. Crunching the mental math, Chan-seok realized it was a total steal. Free protection, plus an instant fame boost. Perfect. Still, he needed the mission details first. The quest was a naval escort from Busan to Nanning. Since mutant zones ruined global shipping, moving basic survival gear paid ridiculously well. But scanning the inventory, Chan-seok's brain completely blue-screened. Rolex, vintage wine, antique plates, and a luxury sports car. This wasn't a relief package. It was a billionaire's shopping cart. He deadpanned, wondering if the apocalypse somehow redefined what absolute human survival necessities looked like. The president just laughed. For the filthy rich, those truly were basic needs. Chan-seok couldn't care less. Why bother with politics when the whole country was already falling apart? The president pushed back. Sure, apocalyptic monster rifts were wrecking nations, but diplomatic games were still in play. Sucking up to foreign powers, mainly China, remained crucial. Chan-seok got the memo, but still instantly rejected the job. He bluntly stated he had zero interest in high-level political drama, immediately packing his bags to bounce. The old man desperately played the patriotic card, but our guy wasn't having any of it, being used as a solo pawn in a massive political chess game. Yeah, hard pass. Annoyed, the president mocked him, claiming all this media hype was making a rookie hunter overly arrogant. With zero hesitation, Chan-seok casually tossed the secret files out the chopper window. Thanks for the lift, old man. Then, he literally yeeted himself out of the flying chopper. Kids these days? The president sighed. Fast forward, and a completely drenched Chan-seok washed up at Incheon port, panting for dear life. He dragged his exhausted body ashore. He actually thought that brutal swim might kill him. A slacking dock worker stared at him in disbelief. Dude, I don't know what you fought, but you look absolutely wrecked. Giving a deadpan nod, Chan-seok gasped for air. The reality check hit hard. He desperately needed a major power-up. Time to hunt down the most suicidal and brutal missions available, grabbing the quests everyone avoided. He would forge himself into an unstoppable force no politician could ever chain. Scrolling through the garbage quests, he found the perfect nightmare. A Class 2 rift. That should provide plenty of EXP. September 3rd. Giant shrimp hunting season. Local fishermen sailed out. But the sea felt ominously silent. A chilling vibe hung in the salty air. Sea monsters ambushed them near Tsushima Island. They kidnapped the crew with terrifyingly calculated precision. One lucky survivor confirmed the horrifying truth. The kidnapped crew were being held hostage on the island. The mission, save the hostages and destroy the rift. The payout 55 million won. Taking it solo meant bagging all that sweet cash. Plus, a solo clear would skyrocket his hunter ranking perfectly. A tempting gamble, but insanely deadly. Rank 3 beasts hit like tanks. But Rank 2 monsters were walking natural disasters. And a Rank 1. That literally required an entire nation's army. He couldn't just blindly charge into a Rank 2 disaster. He needed a decent meat shield by his side. Suddenly, a specific face popped into his mind. Cut to him cruising towards Tsushima Island. His new partner, Sanga, anxiously scanned the waters. Are we there yet? She complained. Give it an hour. Chan-seok grunted. Bored. She stared awkwardly at his bizarre, one-shoulder armor setup. Is that just for fashion points? Where did you even buy that trash? Do you ever stop talking? He shot back deadpan. A scrap dealer gave it to me. My guy didn't give me free loot, she whined. Because you're literally a scrub. Chanseok roasted her. He casually flexed his solo rank 3 victory status. If my facts hurt your feelings, then grind harder. And stop being so weak. Flashback to a few days ago. Senga was shocked when the rising star suddenly recruited her, a rank 2 dungeon. She had barely survived a rank 3. Absolute nightmare fuel. But Chanseok cleverly baited her. Didn't you cry about wanting a power-up? Tag along with me, and I'll forge you into an absolute powerhouse, desperate for stats. She swallowed her fear and accepted. Back in the present, a blaring alarm shattered the silence. Threat-detected creepy ghost ships emerged from the thick ocean fog. 5 phantom vessels sailed directly toward them. Chanseok's eyes narrowed. This ambush felt way too calculated. Hey newbie, got a fast travel skill to board those things? Smirking, she defied gravity and casually hovered in midair. You can literally fly, he gasped. Duh. It's a basic mobility skill. She flexed back proudly. Next panel, a grumpy Senga hauling him like luggage, sporting a fresh comedy lump on her head. Hey, watch the splashing, he complained from her grip. The fearless solo hunter, completely dependent on his flying Uber. As the fog parted, Yu Chanseok sensed it. A bizarre? Heavy aura pulsed through the air. Peering through the gloom, a humanoid shadow slowly materialized in the distance. But that jerky twitching, definitely not human. Without batting an eye, he vaulted onto the undead-infested ghost ship. As the rotting mob swarmed in, his spear became a blur of lethal silver flashes. A devastating hurricane of thrusts shredded the fragile monsters like wet paper. For a rank 2 gate, these mobs were pathetic. Perfect target practice for his rookie partner. Sanga, boom. A blinding thunderbolt casually cleaved the deck. Nearly frying him, he yelled at her to chill with the massive mana drain before she gassed out. He scolded her to stop nuking basic grunts, reminding her that true strength required absolute control. Sanga quickly dialed back her voltage, aiming for precise, energy-saving strikes. Chanseok played the relentless coach, constantly barking at her to squeeze every drop of efficiency. Mid-battle, grim memories flashed. The freezing, suffocating void of weakness was a hell she refused to revisit. She craved absolute power, eyes flashing. She unleashed a perfectly calibrated shockwave, neatly slicing a ghoul, burning with ambition. She vowed to crawl through the darkest abyss if it meant ascending to the top. As the final undead crumbled, Chanseok strolled over. Having casually wiped out the remaining fleet solo, panting, she admitted her performance was sloppy, offering a rare word of gratitude for his guidance. His brutal tutoring was actually paying off massively. He brushed it off, joking that most meatheads wouldn't get it even with a crayon drawing. Softening slightly, she confessed he was her very first actual mentor. Confused, he questioned her elite academy background. She sighed, explaining her genius-level growth usually just pissed everyone off. Smirking, he playfully asked if his elite coaching would eventually make her the boss. She proudly claimed she always outgrew her masters. Throwing a fiercely arrogant glare, he practically dared her to try. That cocky attitude instantly annoyed her. Touching down on the island, anxious staff frantically prayed for their successful mission. Reviewing the intel, the hostages were reportedly trapped inside a shrine. Sanga noted 2 possibilities existed here, Gaijin and Atazumi. Calculating the route, Chanseok pointed out Gaijin was their closest bet. A quick hike. Sûr. But infiltrating was the easy part. Surviving the escape was the real nightmare. Dragging 15 battered civilians through a monster-infested meat grinder sounded like an absolute escort mission from hell. Worse, the atmosphere reeked of violent, toxic energy that made his very skin crawl with static. He knew a massive tidal wave of corrosive beasts would definitely ambush their retreat. Securing a heavy-duty getaway ride was absolutely mandatory for survival. Finding a van, she swore she was a pro. Cut to her driving like a maniac, outrunning a massive zombie horde, clinging for life. He screamed about her missing brake pedal, deeply regretting his life choices. She snapped at him to take the wheel, then, which he immediately and loudly declined, surfing the speeding roof instead. He shamefully admitted her chaotic drifting still beat his rusty skills. His license expired 2 decades ago anyway. He was built for spilling blood, not parallel parking. Tying his deadly spear to his waist, he launched it like a brutal, returning harpoon of death. Hoping the tether wouldn't snap, he suddenly spotted a fresh wave of ghouls kamikaze diving from the left. Spotting the ambush, Sanga violently yanked the wheel, pulling a wicked drift that pulverized the attacking monsters. She actually giggled like a total maniac, sweating bullets. Chanseok genuinely debated hijacking the driver's seat from this absolute madwoman. Reaching the temple, They went completely unhinged, ramping the van straight up the holy stone steps, vaulting off. He viciously slammed his spear into the earth, igniting the legendary flames of Paradox. An inferno cascaded down the steps, forming a blazing barricade that instantly cremated the pursuing horde, breaching the eerie sanctuary. They spotted the missing civilians bound helplessly to a massive wooden pillar. Flashing her hunter badge, Sangha tried calming them, but a hostage began screaming a terrifying warning. She promised salvation, trying to soothe his panic, but he frantically begged them to flee, warning that death was coming for her too. Right then, a chilling aura crept down her spine. Sangha sensed the lurking enemy way too late. Clash Yukonok instantly deflected the undead blade. He ordered her to load the hostages into the vehicle, declaring this boss fight was his alone. Clashing against this monstrous warrior was no joke. Its speed and power were terrifying. Wielding a long spear in tight quarters against a flashing katana was a total nightmare. He desperately needed breathing room. Boom, Sangha delivered her own ultimate technique, slamming the van straight into the samurai, launching him face first into the ancient bricks. Sweating profusely, Yukonok firmly demanded that once they survived this nightmare, she must swear to never touch a steering wheel again. Totally ignoring his complaints, she just yelled at him to get in the vehicle already. Hostages secured, she slammed the gas pedal to the floor, launching their chaotic getaway. Naturally, the escape route became an absolute nightmare. These bloodthirsty ghouls were enraged, noticing a bizarre glitch. Yukonok pointed out that the undead freaks kept moving even after getting completely flattened. Needing more firepower, he casually requested her blade. She scoffed, declaring that demanding a true martial artist weapon was a massive insult. He fired back with cold logic. She had to choose right now: protect her fragile ego, or save these innocent lives. The ultimate choice was hers. Sighing, she just tossed her precious katana over Duel, wielding both legendary weapons. He smirked, muttering that he never planned to unleash this hidden trump card so early. Flashback to 3 days ago, he had finally cracked open a mysterious loot box, earned by clearing a deadly rank 3 dungeon. Inside rested a magical gauntlet, designed to aggressively drain ambient mana straight from the air. For a low-tier gate, it was considered garbage-tier loot that any rookie could scavenge. Yet, for our overpowered hero, this was an absolute game-changer. Not just a mere battery. Given his massively crippled energy reserves, this artifact acted as an external power source, granting him exactly 5 minutes of absolute carnage. Igniting the gauntlet core, he sucked the surroundings dry of mana and unleashed an endless barrage of terrifying sword strikes. The sheer velocity blurred reality itself. A violent storm of blades utterly annihilated the undead horde and pulverized the entire forest. Breathing steadily amidst the carnage, he ordered Sangha to drive toward the harbor. They zoomed down the coastal highway, leaving only a handful of stubborn ghouls trailing pitifully in their dusty wake. Their poor van was falling apart. Frustrated, Sangha wondered where these endless mobs spawned from, suggesting they should just park this dying clunker and slaughter the pursuers before the engine exploded. However, Yukonok coldly instructed her to keep flooring it. Suddenly, they crashed right through a glowing magical perimeter, instantly blocking the rabid horde from taking another step. Confused by the sudden peace, Sangha stared at a mysterious glowing crest carved into the ground, wondering if it caused this miracle. Our hero had secretly crafted this masterpiece. It was an ancient geometric ward designed to perfectly deflect low-tier beasts. When he revealed this truth, she was dumbfounded. Demanding his teacher name, he merely smirked, teasing that even with a step-by-step tutorial, her brain would fry trying to comprehend it. Secretly, he chuckled, knowing this forbidden array belonged to another dimension. Stepping out of the smoking wreck, he sarcastically praised her chaotic driving skills for leveling up. Curious, she asked if this invisible shield made them invincible against anything. He bluntly shattered her hopes, explaining that high-ranking boss monsters could easily shatter the array, like fragile glass, and that exact nightmare unfolded right away. That same van crushed samurai terrifyingly phased through the glowing wall. His unyielding obsession to claim the sacrifice triggered the danger instincts of Sangha, meeting its soulless, locked-on glare. She gasped in pure horror. It was using the legendary Eye of the Mind. This terrifying ultimate sixth sense allowed a warrior to perfectly calculate and dodge any incoming strike before it even happened. It was an enlightenment that elderly swordmasters spent lifetimes chasing. How could a rotting corpse casually wield such an overpowered realm? Shivering violently, she suddenly felt his steady hand grip her shoulder, casually telling her to relax. He scoffed, calling that legendary realm a cheap party trick. He arrogantly told her to grab some popcorn, promising a masterclass on crushing arrogant techniques with overwhelming power. Crack! The undead warrior popped its broken joints back into a lethal combat stance. Panicking, Sangha screamed as her companion casually strolled forward, unarmed. With a yawn, he lectured that this hyped-up eye of the mind was just muscle memory built from surviving way too many bloody battles. It was merely an automatic survival instinct, reacting blindly to killing intent, fear, and incoming attacks, spitting absolute facts. He mocked that leaking bloodlust just to trigger that reflex was painfully amateurish and downright pathetic. He kept ranting like an eccentric professor, fancy jargon like the eye of the mind, the blade of the heart, or total enlightenment, the harmony of man and steel, or tracing combat back to its origin. These were simply known as martial realms. Swoosh. With one criminally basic spear thrust, he utterly atomized the fearsome boss. Dusting off his hands, he sighed that these godly realms were actually pure trash. Watching the enemy's shattered remains rain down, he realized something. This so-called enlightenment, it's actually a terrifying curse. Fools chain themselves to flashy skill titles, capping their own potential. But out here, true survival doesn't need a fancy name. He knew this undeniable truth firsthand. After all, he paid in blood to finally break free from that ridiculous trap. Chansuk noticed the beast somehow tanked Sangha's vehicular assault, yet it was still foolishly banking on its inner sight. Meanwhile, Sangha was having a massive existential crisis over her absolute zero contribution. She thought she was a top-tier prodigy. But reality check, Chansuk literally carried the entire raid on his back. The power gap was laughably massive. Desperate to reach her goals, she swallowed her pride to beg for a favor. She desperately demanded formal training. His deadpan response, "Aren't I already doing that right now?" Casual pointers weren't going to cut it. She went all in, begging him to become her official master on this brutal path, openly admitting she was utter trash next to him. She shamelessly demanded an extreme, high-speed power leveling session. Why the sudden rush? She dropped a bombshell. She intended to personally obliterate the infamous Shidai Club to absolute dust. For context, the 8 most apocalyptic disaster zones were universally feared as the 8 Greats. The Shidai Club literally swallowed the entire Himalayas. Raising an eyebrow, Chansuk casually asked if this was a classic revenge plot. She nodded fiercely. A deeply personal blood debt to avenge her fallen family. But she wasn't some freeloading beggar, slapping down a premium black card. She flaunted her status as a KY Group VIP. We are talking about a mega conglomerate worth 257 trillion. Completely owned by her bloodline. Shocked by this insane wealth flex, she casually name-dropped her billionaire grandfather as the supreme chairman. Yet she completely trashed her rights to the corporate throne, claiming that tedious succession drama meant absolutely nothing. Chansuk knew better, though. Leveling up into an elite hunter would instantly drag her right back into those toxic family politics. She would become a massive threat. Smirking, he pointed out that dropping that golden ticket was definitely a calculated bribe. So what is the real catch? Her eyes burned. She just wanted ultimate power. Her payment method, an infinite supply of god-tier elixirs and mythic artifacts that money simply could not buy. Figuring he also craved absolute strength, she promised her infinite golden wallet would easily push him to the absolute apex of martial realms. Chansuk sighed internally. Even dropping the absolute truth, she would think he was completely delusional. He had already hit the level cap eons ago, his current grinding, just gathering enough dimensional energy to finally teleport back home. Shaking her hand anyway. He rejected the fancy loot drop. Instead, he promised to cash in a much lazier favor down the line. But priority number 1, getting this wrecked hunk of metal straight to the emergency room inside the chaotic clinic. A frantic doctor assessed the absolute carnage, counting 7 battered survivors in total. Their HP bars were flashing red. It would take weeks to heal, but he promised to send an alert once they finally woke up. With that handled, they were finally dismissed. But our crazy main character demanded a training montage immediately. Sangha panicked completely, screaming that they literally just survived a deathmatch. Ignoring her complaints, he dragged her to a desolate wasteland for their hellish boot camp. Before the beatdown began, Chansuk flashed a terrifying smirk. If I unleash my full killer intent, could you actually dodge? Sweating bullets, she admitted she would get instantly deleted. Fully, painfully aware of his monstrous stats, he completely rejected that loser mindset. By pushing her sensory overdrive to the absolute maximum, survival was totally possible. First, pierce illusions with sight. Listen to the killing intent. Feel the very mana shifting around. She had to ditch blind instinct and fight with absolute, terrifying focus. Time for a brutal pop quiz. Without warning, He completely vanished into thin air, her brain totally short-circuited. Before she could even pick a sense, the cold steel of his spear was already pressing against her throat. Way too slow, he mocked mercilessly. In a real deathmatch, hesitation kills. Your survival instincts must fire off long before your brainwaves even connect. That is the literal purpose of true awareness, automatic defense against lethal threats, and now it was time to aggressively beat that into her muscle memory. Meanwhile, clueless police officers were losing their absolute minds as the entire block violently quaked, sprinting to the hospital courtyard. Their jaws hit the floor. This terrifying earthquake was just these two maniacs sparring. Chansuk's devastating spear thrusts were literally shredding the earth, desperately. Song-ah barely deflected the catastrophic shockwaves with her singing katana. She desperately attempted a counterslash, but this monster just smiled, effortlessly cranking the lethal pressure even higher. This apocalyptic anime battle only paused when a terrified cop screamed over the chaos, yelling that the injured survivors were finally wide awake. Sanga's legs gave out. She was totally gasping for air, completely drained. Meanwhile, Yu Chansuk yusht smirkt. Awake now, he teased, impressed by how quickly she learned to block his ridiculous attacks. And just like that, training session 1 concluded. The crazy part, Sanga realized this nightmare was just starting. Back at base, a frail survivor, hooked to an IV drip, revealed a shocking truth, swearing he wasn't crazy. He claimed a mysterious truck rolled in, hauling away the missing captives. The real plot twist, human kidnappers were teaming up with the monsters, entirely unbothered. Get this. The freaking zombies were literally playing cargo boys, loading people into the vehicle. Now the math made sense to Chansuk. 7 survivors. He sighed, calling the guy lucky for pulling a solid escape act. That info was clutch for saving the rest, but the man shook his head. He didn't escape. The terrifying reality, they intentionally let him walk. Chansuk's eyes narrowed. Are you absolutely sure? Chansuk's radar was pinging hard. An average Joe strolling out of a literal zombie apocalypse. Highly suspicious. Someone pulled the strings, making this guy the perfect bait. Sanga instantly called it out as a blatant trap. Still, the logic was super flimsy. Chansuk scoffed, branding it a cheap, utterly shameless villain tactic. Sanga stared. Was he mad about being played? Or was something else brewing? Maybe using human lives as fishing lures crossed a line. Regardless, Chansuk demanded any leftover intel. Bingo. The witness nodded weakly, recalling the exact figure stepping out of that suspicious truck. The zombie puppet master had finally shown up, completely chilling with a pet cat. Later at the airport, Sanga quickly checked her smartphone. Look at this. She smirked. The local mascot is literally a cat. Chansuk blinked. How'd you even find that out? She rolled her eyes. Is your phone just a heavy paperweight? He fired right back. Listen. Princess us mere mortals pay ridiculous prices for mobile data. What is this? The 2000s, she laughed. Data is basically free now. Grandpa, jokes aside, Sanga felt 0 energy signatures around them, suggesting they retreat to the safe zone. But Chansuk smirked. No need for that. His sharp eyes already locked onto 2 distant figures. One dude looked like a walking hardware store. Chansuk snickered. Did that guy lose a fight with a nail gun? Humor vanished instantly. The woman beside him radiated pure danger. I'm Kim Jayan. She smirked. Ordered to bag you both alive. Without warning, she yanked up a half-dead dude from the dirt. Actions speak louder than boring monologues. She mercilessly chucked him straight into a deadly rift. Moments later, a grotesque, zombie-like monster crawled back out. Trash body equals trash monster. Jian yawned, casually obliterating the mutated freak with a single, devastating kick. Sanga glared, wondering if they were next on the menu. Oh, please. Jian scoffed. Turning normies is a total waste of time. The results are super pathetic. The puzzle pieces snapped together. This definitely wasn't some basic ransom grab. Those hostages were literally disposable lab rats to her. Smiling wickedly, Jian announced her orders to info-dump their master plan. She dramatically revealed their identity as the descendants of Dan, bound by one insane, ultimate goal. Their absolute mission: forging South Korea into an untouchable superpower, crushing anyone who dared stand in their way. Boom! Her aura erupted debris, and heavy cars floated upward, proving her fanatical claim for national supremacy with raw strength. Suddenly, she punted a massive car straight at him. Bam! Chansuk shattered it midair, shouting that Korea was strong enough. Not even close, she yelled, eyes burning with madness. She vowed to elevate their homeland into a godlike, unshakable empire, obliterating the word weakness from existence. She demanding they remember the blood-soaked history of the entire peninsula, recounting centuries of humiliation, stripped wealth, and forced bowing to giant powers like China and Japan. Payback time is finally here, she roared. Meanwhile, Chansok internally analyzed her stance, guessing she was just a skilled taekwondo black belt. But holy crap, her speed was completely off the charts. Bam! A perfectly executed kick launched Chansok backward like a ragdoll. He staggered up, shaking off the dizziness. Phew. She was lightning fast, but her raw power totally manageable. Suddenly, her twisted logic started making sense. If the corrosion rifts vanished, Korea's global rank would plummet, since hunters were their ultimate military asset. So basically, playing hero and saving the world was completely off her schedule. Chansuk fired back, reminding her about the daily slaughter of innocents. Maybe check your priorities, he scoffed. She just smirked, calling him utterly clueless. The shocker A method to control the rifts already existed. That made him pause. If true, it completely flipped the script. But honestly, if they truly mastered rift control, the world wouldn't be this absolute dumpster fire. Playing along, he casually asked just how deep this supposed control went. Enough, she answered vaguely. Red flags instantly went off in his head. To Chansuk, she sounded like every other smooth-talking scammer, all hype. Zero actual results. Basically, they were just pathetic frauds hiding behind a fake noble cause. That trash talk hit a nerve. Fury blazed as June violently cratered the ground. Whoops. Maybe he pushed too far. But whatever. Stalling was the plan to charge his mana glove anyway. The catch. The gauge was still blinking. He didn't have enough juice for the paradox flames. Time for a stalling battle of attrition. But neither fighter anticipated Sangha suddenly crashing the party. Her blinding ambush clipped Yoon's hair, forcing the villain to desperately dodge at the final millisecond. Yoon's eyes widened in sheer shock. Was this crazy girl totally fearless? Sangha still had plenty of guts left in the tank. You can't beat her, Chansuk warned. But Sangha smirked. She had already noticed his uncharged glove. He needed time. How long, she demanded. Just give me 5 minutes. He confidently replied. Down went the elixir. Sangha boldly stepped up, violently channeling raw lightning through her entire body. Seeing her chug that much refined potion, Chansuk panicked. A mana overload could literally fry her. It is an absolute emergency, she yelled back, reluctantly agreeing. He locked in their desperate plan. In 5 minutes, he would tag in. Just do not lose, Sangha ordered. Suddenly, torrential rain hammered the chaotic airport. Yoon laughed, mocking the girl to chill out before her reckless lightning fried her own teammate. Sangha's answer, a brutal, high-voltage strike that violently zapped Jin from shoulder to foot. Yet shockingly, it barely left a scratch. June retaliated with a devastating tornado kick. Chansuk barely swooped in to catch the falling Sangha. Time was up. Chansuk stepped forward, a deadly smirk appearing. Ready to meet your maker. June stared in disbelief. How did his mana spike so insanely fast? Was he sandbagging earlier? He just shrugged like it was obvious. He basically copied the exact same mechanism as her piercings. June froze, utterly stunned. Literally anyone could see it. He mocked. Massive waves of refined mana were hopelessly leaking from her overloaded body. The ultimate flex, he had been secretly siphoning all her wasted energy to turbocharge his own unique skill. Impossible, June screamed in denial. Nobody can just absorb external mana like that. But in a mere blink, he materialized right behind her. No need to understand, he whispered coldly. Because you are dying right now. He then unleashed the blue trajectory, a devastating 16-hit combo. Gasps escaped June's broken, completely battered body. Her insides were basically incinerated. Breathing failed her, and even her own heartbeat faded into a faint echo. Just surrender, Chansuk demanded. Fighting back would only multiply her agony, considering he had practically roasted every single muscle in her body. Desperate, she shrieked for her captain's help. Suddenly, a compressed manosphere viciously blasted Chansuk right in the chest. He barely stayed on his feet, brain frantically processing the sudden sniper attack. The hidden archer took aim again, locking onto his wrist. Chansuk instantly recognized the terrifying speed and deadly precision. This new enemy possessed monstrous instincts. Just who on earth was hiding out there? Seriously, who even uses a vintage bow and arrow nowadays? Could this mysterious sniper actually be June's infamous captain? That monstrous aura explained everything. The guy totally earned his title, honestly. His power dwarfed hers by at least 2 or 3 times over, not backing down an inch. The archer smirked, praising Chansok's massive guts. The guy clearly wasn't scared of the Grim Reaper. Chansok simply shot back, that a real killer would have struck by now. Seriously. This dude didn't come here just for a pointless brawl. He had an ulterior motive involving those flames. Snapping his fingers, Chansok dialed up the dark fire around Kim Jae-hyun, making her scream in agony. Completely drained, she cried out for mercy. Totally pushed beyond her breaking point, the bowman ordered him to kill the fire right now. His tone promising 0-second chances. Chansok just scoffed inwardly. If he had his way, Kim Jae-hyun would be long gone by now. But clearly, this overpowered captain wasn't having it. In reality, the archer was somehow acting as Kim Jae-hyun's absolute lifeline, pumping his own aura into her, like he was shielding a precious little sister. How touching, recalling that blazing arrow. He knew a headshot would have meant an instant game over. Yet, the sniper held back, getting the message. Chansok casually dispelled his dark fire. Kim Jae-hyun face-planted, utterly exhausted. The archer nodded, tossing out a dry compliment for his obedience. Chansok's sweat dropped at the guy's insane stats. The dude teleported to her side in a literal heartbeat. The archer coldly asked if he comprehended the damage done, revealing her muscles were completely deep-fried. Thanks to that stunt, she was looking at a permanent wheelchair and life support. Oh, still. He coldly stated that he only needed Chansok breathing. Nothing else was strictly required. Knocking an arrow. He threatened a brutal beatdown without a second thought. Chansok flared up. Daring him to shoot, he'd choose the grave over becoming some corporate puppet. Lowering his bow, the captain claimed he perfectly understood how that dark fire operated. He admitted a temporary stalemate was unavoidable right now, but dropped a terrifying, ominous warning. Back when dungeons first spawned, nobody dreamed of taming them. Yet, he pulled off that impossible, legendary feat alone. He promised that eventually, Chansok would dance on his puppet strings too. Watching him vanish, Chansok sighed. That was one ridiculously overpowered freak he never wanted to see again. Meanwhile, a trembling Sangha wobbled upright, asking if those guys wanted his exclusive skill. He nodded, utterly clueless as to why. She noted they totally missed out on using her unconscious body as prime hostage material. Chansok guessed her dark history, gave them pause. Sangha frowned, arguing that typical villains couldn't care less about backstories. Chansok urged her to think straight, realizing this shadowy group had a concrete agenda. They probably weren't even fighting the Korean state, hell. The government might actually be secretly funding those guys. Hearing that mess, Sangha nervously suggested they just leave this dungeon alone. Chansok offered to just play dumb and walk away. Though honestly, her poker face was absolute trash. Ultimately, he shoved future problems aside. They were clearing this gate right now. Whatever the chaotic fallout might be, he ordered her to stay put while he pulled a reckless solo run. Sangha worriedly asked if he'd survive. He smirked, saying he'd find out soon enough, and told her to just relax. Stepping into the Rank 2 Tsushima Gate, a breathtaking, monstrous imperial palace towered over him, touching the eerie walls. He ran a quick scan. Despite being built by literal zombies, this fortress was unnaturally sturdy. Plus, the suffocating demonic aura here actually made his lungs burn like fire. Taking just 5 steps, his gamer instinct screamed that the boss room was behind those giant gates. Sure. Getting antsy before a massive raid was a rookie mistake, but blinking in this cursed zone would guarantee a bloody game over. Reaching the Grand Hall, he spotted an ungodly cauldron radiating insane magical pressure. This was the core, but it looked totally bizarre. Suddenly, a total jump scare. A desperate hand grabbed his ankle, sobbing for salvation from their total paralysis. Before he could even blink, a fleshy tentacle whipped out, dragging the victim into the pot. Their agonizing shrieks echoed briefly before their entire body violently vaporized. Seconds later, that exact same guy crawled out as a mindless zombie. Chansok's blood ran cold. They were farming living humans as crafting materials. The horrific sight triggered his past life trauma. Remembering innocent souls burning alive, his stomach violently flipped. He was dangerously close to losing his lunch. Humans truly were the absolute worst kind of trash. Suddenly, an eerie aura crept up behind him. A phantom materialized, mocking the arrival of fresh meat. But wait, this new prey felt completely different. The phantom sensed a familiar, battle-hardened aura radiating from Chansok. Turns out, this ghost used to be a wandering samurai, He demanded Chan-sok draw his weapon. This crazy ghost wanted to forge his blade, using the kid's fresh blood. Chan-sok practically choked on the suffocating pressure. No doubt about it. This was the insane might of a rank 2 core. Horrifying goosebumps exploded across his skin. The sheer killing intent in the air was absolutely terrifying as he scanned his surroundings. Did that hooded creep really solo this monster and hijack the rift? Seriously. What kind of broken cheat code did they use? Suddenly, the ghost snapped at him. Keep your eyes glued to the deadly blade. Still, Chan-sok bet the hooded grunt was not actually this strong, which meant their hidden boss was ridiculously overpowered. No time to strategize. Chan-soki barely threw his body backward to dodge a terrifying, lightning-fast sword slash. Experiencing that insane speed firsthand was an absolute nightmare. The Phantom smirked, casually bragging about his centuries of combat experience. Gripping his spear, Chan-sok formed a desperate plan against this overpowered freak. He needed to gamble everything on one explosive strike. He charged like a raging bull, but the Phantom read him like an open comic book and effortlessly parried the blow. Chan-sok's jaw practically hit the floor, not just because his ultimate attack was casually swatted away. He literally did not even see the samurai swing his sword. The Phantom smugly lectured him on the invisible art of assassination. Honestly, the movement was just ridiculously fast. Whoosh, Chan-soke scrambled away, but still got sliced by the blade. A shallow cut. Sure. But a massive reality check regarding this ridiculous speed gap. The Phantom offered a mocking compliment. Genuinely impressed the kid had not lost his head yet. Then, he unleashed an absolute tornado of vicious slashes. Let us see you try parrying this one. Kid, the blinding flurry was simply overwhelming. Chan-sok became a human punching bag, battered and dripping with blood. He crashed hard onto his knees, gritting his teeth. He used his spear as a crutch and ignited his paradox flames to heal. Spamming his ultimate skill this early was a genuinely terrible idea. Even worse, the flames were completely useless offensively here. You cannot burn a ghost that is already dead, running on pure survival instinct. He just kept swinging. The Phantom laughed, calling him a fascinating little toy and eager to test his absolute breaking point. The merciless beatdown resumed. Every single clash left Chan-soke painfully battered and bleeding. Countering was physically impossible now. His limbs felt like solid lead. His world spun wildly, and he teetered on fainting entirely. Still, he shamelessly spammed his healing flames just to stay upright, wildly thrusting his spear like a stubborn madman at any tiny opening. His brain completely blue-screened. He actually blacked out on his feet for a few terrifying seconds. Miraculously, the ghost did not finish the job. Talk about sheer dumb luck. Chan-soke greedily siphoned more healing energy from his paradox flames. Blinking back to reality, he magically appeared right behind the boss jackpot. This was his golden opportunity for a dramatic finisher, but in a single eye blink, the Phantom teleported right behind his back. Too incredibly slow. The ghost mocked from the shadows. A deadly swing shaved mere inches off his head. Spraying fresh blood, surviving on pure adrenaline alone, Chan-sok fiercely shoved the ghostly enemy backward. The Phantom chuckled softly, playfully admitting the kid possessed some insanely good luck today. Completely annoyed, Chan-sok realized he was just a plaything. He angrily demanded answers. Why spare him? Why treat this deadly battle like a video game? The Phantom sighed deeply. Honestly, he would have instantly beheaded the boy if he still retained his glorious prime form. Now his mind was shattered. He could not even recall his own name. Losing his past memories had completely nerfed his legendary sword techniques and raw strength. Thanks to that massive debuff, some other overpowered freak completely crushed him and literally chained him here. He bitterly confessed he was treated like a sad stray mutt, forced to wear a humiliating, magical slave collar. The puzzle pieces instantly clicked for Chan-sok. This ghost had physical form but zero memory, exactly the opposite of Chan-sok, who lost his original body but kept his incredibly overpowered tactical knowledge. It made absolute sense now. That magical leash was definitely the hidden boss's mind control ability, forcing strong warriors into completely mindless servitude. The ghostly samurai mourned his pathetic fate, stripped of his name, his past, and even his original passion for the way of the sword. Now, only toxic bitterness and absolute despair remained. Without warning, the tragic Phantom erupted into chilling, supernatural flames and entirely vanished. A massive, shadowy eyeball suddenly ripped open above them, fueled by the cauldron. It glared down like a demonic black moon. The samurai's soul had fused perfectly into that terrifying darkness, and that unblinking, monstrous stare promised a whole new level of absolute nightmarish horror. Chansoke realized the phantom swordsman's bitter resentment had only multiplied in strength. Yet paradoxically, the shadow spirit had bled away massive amounts of his past martial experience and refined sword technique. This revealed a brutal truth. If he risked everything on one ultimate, devastating strike, victory was still entirely possible. It required burning every drop of his power. Ignoring the deadly backlash, black paradox flames surged deep within his core, desperately healing his battered flesh while violently skyrocketing his combat strength. The shadowy specter coldly observed, murmuring about such a bizarre and unnatural ability. Those pitch-black embers were clearly incinerating something far beyond mere physical matter. Chansoke smirked. His flames literally burned abstract concepts. It sounded like an absurdly overpowered cheat skill. But the harsh reality was far more complicated. The grander the concept he targeted, the more aggressively his mana drained, making the volatile flames nearly impossible to control. Therefore, he had strictly rationed his dark flames, avoiding reckless overkill until now. He remembered crushing Kim Jun, forced to painstakingly restrict his output just to leave her body intact. If he were still dominating his original universe, that annoying limitation wouldn't even exist. Earth required surgical precision. However, this desperate moment demanded absolute, unrestrained destruction. Chansoke ruthlessly chose to incinerate the literal durability concept of the entire palace. The specter hesitated, but before logic clicked, Chansoke exploded forward. His velocity broke the sound barrier. In a brutal flash, he landed a devastating critical hit, violently ripping off the enemy's shadow arm, giving zero breathing room. He mercilessly chained his attacks, scoffing that the ghost could piece the puzzle together while getting utterly thrashed. Internally, he grinned. The legendary phantom definitely had a damage cap. Exactly what he needed. Simultaneously, a crazy thrill sparked within him, wondering just how much lethal punishment his own body could tank. Panic hit the specter. The grand palace was rapidly crumbling, its foundational durability actively being erased by the pitch-black inferno. Forced into a corner, the ghost shifted the battlefield. They blasted outside, exchanging earth-shattering, hyper-violent shockwaves. Amidst the explosive choreography, a monumental clash of steel brutally snapped Chansoke's spear cleanly in half. The phantom unleashed a god-tier slash that literally cleaved the distant mountain range apart. Yet defiantly, Chansoke stood tall, gripping his broken shaft. Like a falling star, he launched a suicidal charge. Streaks of neon blue and phantom attack echoes formed an unstoppable, relentless tempest of blows. Countless devastating holes violently punctured through the shadowy anatomy of the ancient specter. Stunned, the ghost confessed he had never witnessed such madness. Even in his glorious past life, he desperately asked what monster Chansoke was, but his words died abruptly. Another comet-like surge exploded forward, and Chansoke viciously impaled him with the broken spear. A dazzling web of blue lethal trajectories mercilessly diced the spectral body into ribbons. The phantom frantically tried regenerating and reacting, but completely failed to match the godly speed. Slowly, the oppressive shadows faded into nothingness, exposing the tragic remnants of a forgotten warrior devoid of a name, memories, or lingering purpose. Regardless, the two monsters continued their brutal deathmatch until both vessels reached total collapse. In the blinding climax of that final clash, the paradox flames entirely vaporized the palace. Suddenly, Chansoke recalled a philosophical past-life conversation. Someone once asked his strategy against a literally unbeatable god-level enemy. His badass answer was beautifully simple. When two peak martial artists clashed with everything, one inevitably had to die, and destiny favored exactly that outcome. Following the ultimate impact, a drained Chansoke collapsed to his knees, bathed in sunlight. The ancient specter permanently vanished, yet, barely clinging to consciousness, he arrogantly smirked. As expected, he remained the absolute strongest. As the apocalyptic dust settled, the dark domain vanished entirely. Magically, a gleaming loot chest spawned where the boss had stood. A wave of nostalgic gamer joy hit Chansoke. The system mechanics here were flawlessly identical to his old fantasy dimension. Popping the lid, he discovered an epic tier spear, featuring a massive, heavy blade mounted on a uniquely short, glaive-like shaft. Inspecting the loot, he realized channeling mana could elastically extend the weapon's reach. This absolute beauty offered insane tactical versatility for combat. Then his inner loot goblin clicked. Rift drop rates mathematically scaled based on party size. He suddenly facepalmed, realizing he totally should have dragged Sanga inside just to harvest more premium gear. However, scanning the ruined crater, his sharp eyes spotted the ghost boss's legendary sword resting completely intact. Without a second thought, he casually pocketed it as a souvenir for Sanga. Arriving back at the apocalyptic airport ruins, he found her deeply asleep. She jolted awake when a heavy metal blade abruptly clattered right beside her, rubbing her groggy eyes. She stared at the glowing edge, blurting out that she had never seen such exotic craftsmanship before. Chansok shrugged, casually claiming he just found it lying around. Judging by the overpowered maniac who originally swung it, the stats had to be top tier. Inspecting the magical aura closely, Sanga gasped, confirming it was actually an unimaginably excellent masterpiece. She gratefully thanked him, but suspicion immediately took over. She bombarded him with questions about the rift's terrifying interior and his physical well-being, acting utterly unfazed. He completely dodged the interrogation, smoothly shifting topics by asking if she slept well. Time to swap shifts and finally catch some sleep. Right, nope. Mid-sentence, Chansoka face-planted straight into the hard concrete. Sanga Yusaihu. Watching him snore. Guess the overpowered monster is actually human after all. The terrifying gap between a rank 2 and rank 3 rift. Yeah, it was an absolute joke. Completely off the charts. So, when the world found out some crazy guy solo cleared a rank 2 corrosion rift, the entire internet totally lost its mind. We are not talking about a simple lucky win here. This was absolute god-tier gameplay. Who is this masked madman? His face was plastered across every giant screen, newsfeed, and paper imaginable. Total superstar status. Ping ping, his phone practically melted from the endless notifications. Filtering the spam from reality became impossible. The hype was so insane. He was practically taken hostage in his own home. Hordes of fans camped outside his door. Enter the mysterious VIP. Jasu Jagan, from the shadowy Embargo Tower Secretariat, casually crashed his accidental house arrest. He awkwardly thanked her for paying his massive hospital bills. Scratching his head, he confessed total ignorance. Embargo Tower. Never heard of it in my entire life. She smirked. Makes sense. We are a ghost organization. They operated strictly behind the scenes in high-tech information and communications, playing the perfect host. She casually offered to fix literally any inconvenience he had while hiding out. But our main character wasn't born yesterday. Those bills cost a fortune. Cutting to the chase, he bluntly demanded to know her real price. Instead of answering, the mysterious lady simply pulled out a tiny, delicious cake. Sweet tooth, she teased, before casually dropping a massive lore bomb about a new shield generator built to block corrosion monsters. Delivery boy duty. Huh, she nodded, revealing this shiny new toy was an ultra-rare prototype straight out of the United States. If this crazy science project actually worked and hit mass production, humanity might finally catch a desperately needed break. It was a literal lifesaver for hellish dead zones where hunters couldn't survive. No pressure. Right. Just a legendary escort quest that could literally rewrite humanity's doomed fate. Sweating bullets. Chansoke asked if this was some massive raid-level request. She just smiled and nodded. Other big-shot hunters were already jumping in. Even the notorious Janabi Guild was locked in. Yeah. This crazy operation was absolute top-tier madness. The loot drop would be riding the rails, starting all the way from Vladivostok, chugging straight through to the Netherlands. Once there, a VIP chopper flight straight into the United Kingdom for the ultimate survival test. Why the United Kingdom, he asked. Squinting, she sighed, dropping the map details. Apparently, a massive enemy force was currently terrorizing Naples. Italy, their dark influence was aggressively swallowing the map, from Europe straight down into North Africa. When the smoke cleared, the United Kingdom was the last absolute fortress left standing. Mother Nature's ultimate barrier. That massive ocean moat literally saved their skins. Mainland Europe, total apocalyptic wasteland. Governments had completely crumbled, leaving greedy corporations and warlord hunters running the chaotic streets. Because the world was burning, they were not just hauling tech. They were also smuggling crucial humanitarian supplies for the desperate survivors. His gamer senses tingled. Let me guess. Every bandit on the continent is going to ambush this train. She nodded grimly. A guaranteed bloodbath. Then, staring right at him, she randomly asked if he had ever stamped his passport before. He sweat dropped. Nope. This suicidal road trip would be his very first European vacation. He already knew this sightseeing tour involved fighting for his life. Are you tagging along too? He asked. The mysterious lady smirked and nodded. The Embargo Tower needed fresh combat data. and she was assigned as the official nerdy backline support for the strike team. Well, at least he'd have one familiar face, braving the chaos with him. Wow. She really just assumed he'd say yes, taking another greedy bite of the cake. Our hero held up a single finger. One condition: the elite hunter Sang-ah absolutely had to join their party. She blinked, verifying if he meant the same girl who wrecked Tsushima Island alongside him. Bingo. He nodded confidently. A promise was a promise. And in this brutal apocalypse, her loyalty was absolutely priceless. Raising an eyebrow, Jagan challenged that blind trust. After all, Command held the ultimate VIP invites, not some rookie hero. Still, she chuckled and agreed. Adding another powerhouse to the raid roster was a massive win. Shaking hands, she welcomed him aboard. Flash forward, and our team was already flying out of Korea, mid-flight. He awkwardly told the president that sending a massive military chopper just for him felt incredibly ridiculous. Guess clearing those legendary rifts comes with VIP perks. He joked. The president just smirked. Kid. The power gap changes absolutely everything. Their mild expectations completely shattered into absolute awe. The Hunter Association practically begged to throw endless resources at his every move. Chansok smirked internally. The VIP treatment was finally real, not just a fleeting illusion. This was solid proof that having overpowered skills was an absolute cheat code here. Still, his mind raced. Did the big boss know about those freaks controlling the rifts? And if he knew, would he blindly fund them? Or launch an all-out war? Those heavy thoughts buzzed in his brain until he hopped into the chopper and spotted Hunter Lee Soon. She teased that his crazy rumors were everywhere. He deadpanned that finding someone who didn't know his face was the real challenge now. Seizing the moment, he asked for their destination. Lee Soon casually dropped that they were hitting a military base. They were crashing the massive Embargo Towers operation. Chansok nodded, figuring that completely checked out, a literal shield generator. Every greedy nation on Earth was drooling over it. If this artifact actually worked, hunters would practically lose their jobs in national defense, though for Korea, that sounded like a massive buzzkill. Changing gears, he asked if she had heard of an edgy crew called the Descendants of Dangun. She raised an eyebrow. Those crazy ultranationalist terrorists. She was honestly shocked he even knew their name. Chansok casually mentioned he bumped into those fanatics back during the wild Tsushima Island raid. Lei Soon sighed, explaining that this exclusive Korean cult had been popping up everywhere like annoying pop-up ads. They loved trolling hunters during rift raids. Chansok admitted he sort of grasped their twisted protective logic. He understood their deranged mindset, even if he thought they were nuts. Suddenly, Lee Soon tossed him a random pumpkin candy. He blinked at the sweet in pure confusion. She just smirked, asking if he had ever left the country. He awkwardly admitted this was his very first international trip. Wait. She was the second person to ask him that. Lee Soon chuckled, hinting that this crazy mission was going to completely shatter his innocent worldview. Touching down at the military base, the grand strategy briefing kicked off with all the heavy hitters. Top secret files were tossed around while Superintendent Hanso took the stage. This absolute beast of a train boasted 80 cars. 65 cars were packed with cargo, leaving just 15 tiny spaces for the hunters and the Korean army to crash. But Chansok's jaw dropped. Lee Soon scored a whole luxury car entirely to herself. Talk about insane VIP privilege for a top 10 ranker. The wealth gap was real. Hanso quickly justified it. She was the ultimate boss, guarding the actual shield generator. After all, only an elite squad could even breathe near that car. He then warned that the soul-crushing travel fatigue meant they would need to beg the army for guard rotations just to survive the boredom. Boom. Lee Soon ruthlessly cut him off. Her Janabi Guild owned this generator, and regular soldiers were totally banned. Nobody else was touching her shiny toy. The superintendent nervously swallowed his pride and just kept talking. He mapped out deadly corrosion zones on their route. 7 were Alpha-class death traps. Plus, they had to worry about insane bandits and overpowered warlords wanting their loot. Lee Soon burst out laughing, sarcastically calling it a cheesy Wild West movie with actual train robbers. Hanso aggressively sweat dropped. They had messaged 8 European warlords, but only 3 left them on read, which meant 5 literal warmongers were probably planning an ambush right now. Chansok mentally calculated the ridiculous enemy numbers. A soldier panicked, shouting about how many villains they would actually fight. Monsters, bandits, and rogue armies. Pure dread started sweeping through the entire briefing room. People were seriously questioning if this suicide mission was even remotely possible to clear. But Lee Soon just radiated supreme confidence. She boldly guaranteed absolute safety against any trash mobs. Flash forward to departure day. The squad hit Vladivostok station in freezing Russia. Countless guilds scrambled to load up the massive steel beast for departure, rocking a fresh new trench coat. Chansok strolled alongside the absolutely gigantic train. This mechanical monster was a full kilometer long, and he was hunting for first class. Suddenly, Senga spawned out of nowhere. She instantly nagged him about his promise, demanding they brew those epic elixirs post-mission. Chansok jumped in shock. Since when did she unlock stealth mode? He hadn't sensed her at all. She rolled her eyes, mocking him for chilling in the luxury cabin like royalty. Chansok muttered he hadn't seen Lee Soon either. Looked like everyone was hoarding VIP privileges, but him. Jasu Jigen stepped up with a smirk. We finally made it. Let us check out our ride. Chansok nodded, totally on board with that plan. Taking a good look, he whistled. Man, you can totally tell the Magic Tower poured serious cash and sweat into this beast. Staring at the insanely thick blast doors, he muttered, this security setup looks completely bulletproof. But honestly, doesn't this flashy armor scream attack me? Jasu Jigan just laughed. Let them stare, it is way safer this way. This baby is completely decked out in military-grade uranium armor, just like heavy assault tanks. Chanshok smirked. Between this absolute fortress on wheels and having the legendary Lee Saren on their squad, failing this mission seemed practically impossible. That smug confidence shattered instantly. Back in carriage, 57. A terrified hunter came sprinting down the aisle, screaming for backup. The guy was drenched in blood. Chansok sprinted over, spear drawn, cursing internally. Seriously, we left 10 minutes ago and the crazy monster party is already starting. Not wasting a single second, he unleashed a fierce spear barrage, slicing through the endless swarm of flying beasts diving at them. Yet amidst the bloodbath, he gritted his teeth. These annoying pests just kept infinitely respawning, sweating bullets. He groaned. Man, if only Lee Saren was actually up here carrying us right now. The brutal reality. The legendary Trans-Siberian Railway was completely wrecked up ahead. To keep this metal beast charging forward, Awakeners literally had to rebuild the rails on the fly. The hilarious problem, the repair crew had zero combat skills. They would be instant monster snacks on their own. That was exactly why the powerhouse, Lee Saren, was stuck at the back, babysitting the builders. Chansok scoffed at the utter absurdity, sticking their ultimate weapon in the rear while the fodder handled the frontline chaos. That boneheaded strategy was practically begging for massive casualties. Glaring at the sky, swarming with grotesque wings, he sighed heavily. Yeah, this is going to be one ridiculously long day. Meanwhile, way out in Khabarovsk, Russia, savage warlords were casually farming monsters, brutally wiping out threats from their frozen turf like it was pest control. Through the snowy carnage, a mysterious Asian man approached a giant European warrior, teasing a highly entertaining new gig, a bloody task meant for only one person. The infamous Lord of Khabarovsk himself, Nikolai Baranov. The giant grunted, annoyed that he had just finished securing his dinner, only for this noisy guest to rile up the surrounding beasts again. The Korean man smirked. Wipe that blood off first. Buddy. He eyed the grotesque meat. Is that seriously what counts as a decent meal in Russia? Nikolai spat back. You Koreans have gotten way too cocky. Just because you have fancy takeout back home. Wiping his blade, the Russian demanded the details, bragging he did not need cash. The Korean chuckled. I know, but trust me. This quest is right up your violent alley. He revealed the master plan. A heavily armored train would be rolling through these frozen tracks within 48 hours. Nikolai barked a massive laugh, thinking it was a stupid joke. The Trans-Siberian rails were completely ruined. With a sly grin, the Korean explained the cheat code. Awakened builders were literally reconstructing the path as the train chugged forward. Hooked, Nikolai asked what precious loot was on board. The Korean waved it off. The cargo does not matter. What matters is the escort team. The legendary Janabi Guild. The giant's eyes immediately lit up with bloodlust. Is that terrifying woman going to be there? The Korean nodded slowly. A vicious grin stretched across Nikolai's face. Smashing a fortress train protected by the almighty Lee Saren sounded like absolute peak entertainment, but the Korean quickly raised a finger. Hold on. Big guy. This is no ordinary train heist. The Janabi Guild is specifically contracted to guard one very special carriage at the back. Nikolai cracked his knuckles. So I just blow everything to Kingdom Come. Wrong. The Korean pulled out a sleek, high-tech device. That ruins the grand plan. Your mission is painfully simple. Just sneak into the right carriage, plant this little toy, and get out. pouting like a bloodthirsty child. Nikolai growled. Can I wreck whatever I want after that? The Korean gave an evil smirk. Absolutely. Go completely nuts once it is planted. Thrilled, the Russian warlord snatched the job, warning him that mere property damage was too boring for his taste. He planned to butcher every single hunter on board, right in front of Lee Saren's eyes. He wanted to completely break her legendary pride. Back on the bloody train, the squad stared in sheer disbelief. Was this spear-wielding maniac really just a fresh rookie? To them, his brutal combat style looked way more monstrous than the actual beasts. Panting slightly, Chansok dusted off his hands. All right. Trash cleared. He glared at his completely winded teammates. Are you guys seriously out of breath? We just left the station. Absolute deadweights. He grumbled, figuring this was basically a solo raid now. Suddenly, Senga stepped up, commanding the slackers to rise. On your feet, the raid is not over. Chansok nodded, grateful for at least one competent ally. But then, he squinted at the horizon. Did a massive avalanche just block our path? The intercom crackled to life. The control room casually announced there was a slight obstacle on the tracks, but insisted they were perfectly fine. But suddenly, Lu coldly interrupted. Stop this train right now. We have incoming, she roared. Instantly, a devastating laser beam ripped toward her, but with absolute chill, she parried the blast, deflecting it into the sky. Sanga blinked, bewildered. Who were these guys? Chansok scoffed. Around Khabarov, there is only one gang crazy enough to pull this. It was Nikolai's heavily armed gang. Without warning, they bombed Li Yun's defensive aura with magical seals, fiercely glitching the barrier. Are you hurt? Sanga panicked. Li Yun gritted her teeth. Worse. They just sealed my mana, broadcasting to every hunter on board. She declared a code red. Yelling that the flanks were under attack, she laid out the grim reality. The commander was out of commission, and enemy forces outnumbered them 10-1, even without my power. We protect this train, she commanded. Chansok smirked, told Sanga to follow, and casually dove off. The crew watched in sheer disbelief. Was he suicidal? It was 50 versus 500. But pride kicked in. They refused to let a newbie fight alone. Li Yun promised to join the bloodbath soon. Suddenly, a man stepped out, smirking that it would not be easy. She glared, asking if he created the seal. He introduced himself as Li Hyun, boasting the Dangun and Prince Yan bloodlines. Technically, he was her highly annoying distant nephew. He chuckled at this bizarre family reunion abroad. Ignoring him, Li Yun struck fiercely, but her legendary sword completely shattered. Li Hyun laughed out loud. That seal is unbreakable. Auntie, save yourself the embarrassment and just surrender. She asked why he was so arrogant over a broken toy, spinning her glowing ring. The shattered weapon instantly regenerated. The system flagged it as the Mirror Ring, an overpowered artifact looted after destroying a level 1 erosion core. Its cheat skill. It flawlessly rebuilt any gear the exact second it broke. Li Hyun sweated, asking if she would brutally spam that until the seal shattered, but she just ruthlessly battered the barrier. Meanwhile, an enemy commander openly mocked Chansok's tiny squad. He ordered them to surrender, arrogantly offering to spare their lives. Chansok was unimpressed. Are you Nikolai? Because you are flying. But I sense 0 mana from your body. Sanga quickly dropped lore. That armor was from the decade-old Predator project, built to let normal humans fight without mana. The South Korean military secretly built testing prototypes, but the insane production costs forced them to completely trash the project. Chansok raised an eyebrow. Then, how did a cancelled Korean supersuit end up on a random Russian mob boss? Sanga's hands trembled as reality hit. Could she actually cross the line and take a human life? Seeing her hesitate, Chansok spoke calmly. If your stomach cannot handle it, step back. I will clean up the trash. But Sanga argued that even he had never fought humans. Plus, these merciless thugs were coming for their throats anyway. To her, they were basically human-shaped monsters. Suddenly, a thug lunged flash. Chansok casually slit his throat. Do the same if you can, he advised coldly. Just do not let the heavy guilt consume your sanity. The nightmares pass in a few days or years. Honestly, it did not bother him in the slightest. Screams, clashing steel, and flying guts surrounded him. It was utterly sickening. Yet Chansok felt perfectly at home in the slaughter. He noted their combat stats were higher, but the sheer numbers and relentless enemy momentum were heavily pushing them back. There was only one way to completely flip this battle. They had to assassinate Nikolai. Nikolai sneered. Instantly recognizing the hyped-up Korean rookie Chansok, genuinely marveled that a Russian lackey knew his name. Boom, Nikolai launched a brutal attack. But Chansok effortlessly parried. Looking disappointed, Nikolai mocked Korea for being desperate. Chansok realized this boss was terrifyingly fast and strong. Even worse, the high-tech armor deflected hits without a scratch. This would be a nightmare fight. If Chansok had not trained on Tsushima Island, bam, he blasted Nikolai backward. Furious, Nikolai completely lost his mind. He vowed to end this instantly, firing a barrage of blinding lasers, dodging smoothly. Chansok wondered why Nikolai was nerfing his firepower. Was he paranoid about accidentally blowing up the shield generator? It clicked. That massive laser blast earlier was purely a warning shot to break the train. If Li Yun was absent, the train would be vaporized, which meant they totally predicted she would parry the strike. The plot was perfectly suspicious. A Russian rocking Korean military tech, a high-tier sealing master conveniently ambushing them. Chansok ignited roaring flames around his armor. His plan melt right through its overpowered durability and speedrun this fight. He slammed Nikolai's shoulder, then unleashed his legendary 16-hit combo, raining down a rapid flurry of devastating strikes. Snap! A glorious crack crawled across the unbreakable armor. Smirking, Chansok knew he just had to keep up the pressure. Panicking, Nikolai desperately tried to negotiate. Wait, you need to break the shield. I can totally help you. Chansok gave zero flips. I do not need trash, he stated coldly, cleanly slicing the boss in half. Li Yun had things covered. Hours later, the battlefield was wiped clean. Lyran smirked, praising Chansok for not just surviving, but completely blowing her expectations out of the water. Chansok casually asked if that guy was a legendary descendant of Dangun. She nodded. Confirming the crazy truth, she noted the coward ran before the seal even broke. Meanwhile, Chansok casually grabbed a snack, leaving his squad utterly baffled. Was this guy totally out of his mind? Chansok blinked innocently at their stares. Li Yujin just sighed, muttering that only a total lunatic could stomach food after a massacre. Drama aside, Chansok spotted soldiers scavenging the tech. Somehow, Nikolai had snagged highly classified gear straight from the Korean military. Smuggling that kind of firepower meant having a massive shadow faction backing him, completely ghosting the government. Or worse, the government was secretly turning a blind eye. Chansok seriously debated if he could trust these guys at all. Elsewhere, Heian groaned, his skull splitting from severe mana exhaustion. He bitterly confessed his absolute failure to the captain. The captain remained chillingly calm. He brushed off the loss, telling him to rest up and completely forget today's disaster. Alone in the elevator, the captain's facade finally cracked. Losing Lee Ha-yoon right after Kim Ji, his chest tightened with pure, suffocating fury. If only he had recognized Chanseok's terrifying black flames sooner, he would have ripped that arrogant kid apart right then and there. Swallowing his rage, he stepped into a sterile, high-tech lab to meet Dr. Seonwoo. He did not waste any time, immediately demanding a strict update on their top-secret project. Seonwoo smirked. It would definitely take time, but ultimate success was entirely possible. However, needing a massive budget and endless time remained exactly the same. He sighed heavily. What a tragic shame they completely missed the shield generator's secrets. That epic tech would have been an absolute game changer.